course you did.
I see.
Just say.
The wrong letter.
Yeah. Are you done? The funny thing is, you sound like
That good.
Here it is. You off, you're off. Yes.
Oh no. I just need to know what the transfer is. Oh, okay. Okay. That's easy. Yeah. I wondered that. Do you want me to just email it in there?
Yes, please. Yeah, because then I can just forward it on to her guy and
Perfect. Okay. That's fine.
cool. Thank you.
pretty sharp, Scott. Looking good.
Okay.
I'm dressing me now.
Decide to wear a tie for a change.
Did somebody die?
All time. Every day.
Yeah. All right. Got it. All right, we'll call the meeting to order. Tiffany, please take the roll.
Councilwoman Garvey.
Present.
Councilwoman Workla.
Present.
Councilman Brennan.
Present.
Councilman Harjo.
Present?
Mayor Sykes.
Present. Let the record reflect that we do have a quorum for Tuesday, January 28, 2025. Really quick, council, before we do anything, can I do an amendment to the agenda? I'd like to add executive session 72-206, subsection 1, subsection F, to communicate with legal counsel for public agency discussion of legal ramifications of legal options for pending litigation or controversies not yet litigated but immediately likely to be litigated. And one last one, to do a presentation for Mr. Fletcher. And then I think Councilwoman Workla had something she wanted to amend or add to the council meeting.
Yeah, I would like to amend the agenda to change the new business item number 5 from non-action item to action item as requested in my email.
Sorry, what was that one again? I'm sorry.
This one right here, non-action, to change this to an action item.
Number 4.
Councilwoman Workla, I don't know how we can add it to an action item when we don't have it in the proper resolution format. So it'd have to stay as a non-action and come back voted on an action in the next meeting.
Could we say, Mayor?
Councilwoman Workla?
Could
Councilwoman Workla, sorry.
Could we say with conditions? So if council did want to pass it with conditions that it could be in the proper city format?
Paul, we typically number them and approve them by in-number sequence. Sorry.
Go ahead, Tiff. Paul?
It doesn't matter, you could do it either way. Sometimes, so it makes more administrative sense maybe to set it over where it has a resolution number. However, sometimes when you have to pass something today because it's imminent, because you got to get the check out or whatever it is, you simply pass it subject to ratification by the full city council at the next meeting with resolution number, blah, blah, blah. And that, you could do that too. So legally, there's really no impediment to doing it either way. There's an administratively easier way to do it, which is the harder way.
Councilwoman.
Yeah, I was just thinking because it's legislation is in session right now, the sooner to potentially get approved by council, the better. But if it still has to come back in 2 weeks anyway, before it can move up to. Okay. So either way, it would have to come back.
So council, you want to, would you so placate me into, or
Mayor,
are you, Councilman Brennan?
I'll make a motion to add executive session. What's their number?
F.
74-206-1F at the end of the meeting, as well as turning item number 5 in new business as a action item.
Second?
Presentation.
I missed that. And adding a retirement presentation.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Councilman Harjo?
Aye.
Councilwoman Workla?
Aye.
Councilman Brennan?
Aye.
Councilwoman Garvey?
Aye.
All right. So, without further ado, we got a lot of handsome men and women in the back there. I don't know what you guys are here for, but Mr. Fletcher, will you come on down here really quick, please?
Hope there's not fire going on right now.
Yeah, right? Well, they're quick access over there, so. So, on behalf of the city, Gary, I want you guys to know that Gary's been around a bit. Gary, I think you've had 6 fire chiefs, and you've been with 9 mayors in your time,
Yes,
starting in '73 to present.
for the mayors.
Right.
I started in 75.
75.
I chased one in 73.
So with that, we do. I know the firemen and the firewomen. They always do something for when everybody retires, and that's something that speaks volumes to you guys and ladies. That what you guys do truly matters. You guys running and taking those times and missing birthdays sometimes. You're missing family events. You're missing a gathering. So to do what you guys do and for 50 years, 50 plus years of doing it, we have a little presentation that we want to give you, Mr. Fletcher. So set that right there.
Oh, that's cool.
So what this states is Gary Fletcher served 1975 when I was born to 2025. Your leadership and dedication have been the guiding light on your fire department for the past 50 years. You will long be remembered for your easy manner, calm, cool demeanor under extreme situations. Your dedication with our community will forever be a gold standard in the fire department. Congratulations and thank you for your service. So.
Before he walks out,
You're looking for the box, but you want to wrap that up?
I'm gonna have to take my seat.
Okay, congrats. Thank you. So we had a couple other retirees that they might say that Gary's is bigger. But that's all right. Gary's heart's been bigger. No, just all joking aside. But thank you for what you do. I've been here about 23 years, and you've been the one staple there. So, on behalf of the city, thank you for what you've done.
Well, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gary.
I don't want to say anything, because sooner or later it's going to cost me $20. So, I just wanted to say thank you for the department showing up. That means quite a bit. And it's pretty awesome. And I thank the council, the mayor. Thank you very much. It's been a good run for me. A lot of experience with a lot of different people. If you have a chance, you just go over there. Look at our board over there with all the men and the women on it. Women later on in life. And I've touched bases with every one of them over there. And I just want to say thank you very much.
Well, Fletch, tell your wife thank you for allowing you to serve the city for 50 years as well. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
We love you, Fletch. We'll send you a bill. We'll send you a bill.
It's going to be the last 20 you're going to see.
Thanks, Fletch.
Thank you.
Carry on with your meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
I must have been still in airplane mode. Oh, did you get it? Yeah, I got it finally. I was like, I can't get my computer up.
I'll second it.
Well, that's awesome.
Motion on the floor to second.
Chuck.
Question, you fined $20 for giving the speech. All in favor?
Text him. It's all I wish I had him here. It's a long time.
All right, planning and zoning, want to come on down and we'll, or I guess you can stay there if you want. You want to call your meeting to order?
You want me to holler?
We'll go for it.
Are you sure?
Yep.
Chair, you don't want it?
No.
Commissioner Waller?
Here.
Commissioner Roder? Here. Commissioner Mills? He's gonna be late, right? Commissioner Drake? Here. Commissioner McCormick?
Here.
All right, with that, James, jeez, James, come on down.
I got the team here today. Let Jordan drive. This is Abby.
All right.
All right, these are the ones that do all the work.
I hope you know at the end of your presentation, you're not gonna get a plaque.
Yeah, okay, I know. It's only been 25 years for me coming here, so 50 years is amazing. That's amazing.
So James, or actually, I'll let Chris start this out and.
Gonna let you down because I don't really have a whole lot other than Keller's been working on the declining balance tool that the council approved them to start a few months ago.
Okay.
We were waiting obviously till we had the end of the year data, which we couldn't get till first week of January. They've got it now. This isn't the complete tool. This is directed specifically toward wastewater, which is obviously a big concern for the community right now. We asked them to put a little rush on it. They were gracious enough to do that, and here is the presentation.
Yeah.
Jordan.
We're excited to be here. So
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to let Abby kind of do a little bit of the introduction, and I'll chime in on some more specifics.
Yeah, so I guess with that, we'll get into our update on the decline balance. So first off, we just wanted to give some background and the purpose of this decline balance. So what we're doing is estimating the capacity for all of the major, in this case, wastewater system components. And we are going to be working on the water as well. So to do that, we analyzed that existing capacity, and then with the recent data, we were able to then calculate the remaining capacity for each component, and then from there we're able to identify which components are either at capacity or nearing capacity, which would cause bottlenecks for any future developments. And then, like we talked about, one of the deliverables for this project was the tool for tracking of the remaining capacity. So that will allow the city staff to be able to provide up-to-date remaining capacities as new developments occur. So as new equivalent dwelling units are added to the system, or homes, that term is just kind of an umbrella term that encompasses homes, apartments, dwellings. So we'll refer to those as EDUs throughout the presentation. As those are added to the system, the city will be able to have up-to-date information.
Yeah, I'll be really quick. Hey, council and Chairman Laura, if you so move, it's up to you. It's your show over there. But I'm going to suspend the Robert's Rules of Order so the council can fire questions at Jordan and James and Abby. Okay.
Perfect. Okay.
Are you same with you? Okay.
To the next slide. So this slide, we just have a brief overview of the wastewater system. And the main components we'll be going over is the headworks and the lagoon systems. Starting off with the collection system, that is the pipe network throughout the city that conveys all the wastewater to the treatment facility. And this was not included in the declining balance. And that's because it was reviewed under the 2023 wastewater master plan, and we also do any modeling for developments as the city needs, since those are specific locations that are affected. Moving on to the headworks pump station, this is where the wastewater is pumped into the lagoons. And then for the lagoons themselves, they're broken up into two categories, facultative and storage. So the facultative lagoons are the first 4 cells, and that's where the treatment occurs. And then for the winter storage, that's where the water is stored for application to the land. Then going on to the irrigation pump station, again pumping the water from the lagoons to the land application site where it's applied for the crops. And those evaluations are still in progress, so we won't be presenting on those today. Getting into the planning criteria, so we use the wastewater planning flows from the 2023 wastewater master plan, and you can see that in the first row of the table. So we have various different flow criterias for average day, maximum day, and peak hour flows. And these flows are based on per capita or per person, so it's gallons per day per person. But as development occurs, those developers typically use added homes and EDUs instead of per person. So with the planning criteria and the total system EDUs, we estimated a composite planning flow, and you can see that highlighted in the red box. So all of those flows are what was used to estimate the remaining capacity. And then in addition to that, we have also, in our analysis, provided with the capacities at 85%. And this is because the city should consider those components to have reached capacity once they reach 85%, so that there's ample time to plan for any improvements, DEQ approvals, and then construction itself.
Yeah, that 85% triggers more of a like, at that point you should start planning to add more capacity to a component because it takes time, as you've seen in recent projects. Okay, thanks, Abby. So what does that look like specifically for the items we're going to go over today? We're going to start here at the Headworks pump station. So your Headworks pump station has 3 different pumps. Each has a capacity of 4 million gallons. That's a total capacity of 12. But DEQ and Idaho code requires your pump stations to be able to meet their peak flows with their large unit offline. So we got to take one of those offline for meeting Idaho code. And so that'll give you what we call firm capacity of 8 million gallons. So if we compare firm capacity 8 million gallons to your existing peak hour flow of 5.4, those pumps have a remaining capacity of about 2.6 million gallons. You divide that 2.6 by the per EDU peak hour flow of 658 gallons per day, and you get about 3,900 EDUs left for your Headworks pump station. So quite a bit there. But when you look at it at 85%, you're looking about 2,100 EDUs. So you could probably add about 2,100 more EDUs before considering adding additional capacity to your Headworks pump station. Okay, moving on to the lagoons. These are the treatment lagoons. There are some general standards and guidelines for treatment in a facultative lagoon, and those come from 10 state standards and some from EPA. So the first one is average day BOD loading, and that's in pounds per acre per day. And 10 states is saying you should be anywhere between 15 pounds per acre to 35 pounds per acre. Right now, your existing condition is about 67, so about twice what they recommend. Also, 10 state standards has a kind of recommendation for detention time, average day detention time of 90 to 120 days. You're at about 45, about half of the lower end of that. And EPA has a standard for BOD loading as well for the max winter month of about 10 to 20 pounds per acre per day. And we're about 5 times that. So we would say your treatment cells are at capacity for treatment. So your permit doesn't have a limit for BOD, so that's kind of one thing to kind of keep in the back of your mind. And the past two water master plans have included recommendations to add aeration and to help increase the treatment in those cells. So those improvements are recommended in your plan.
And I just say for background, this isn't new. This is something we've been saying for 20 years. Mountain Homes lagoons kind of seem to operate a little different than most lagoons. I think maybe just the amount of wind you get gets enough probably natural aeration that's going on, because typically the big driver or concern is the odor. So it's when the odor gets to become a problem, then that's when most people are start really worrying about the aeration. And so this has just been a can the city's been kicking down the road for a long time, and you still can continue to kick it down, but at some point you're going to want to add air and bring it more into this industry standard.
Just to piggyback on that, we do have Don, the wastewater superintendent. He's working on getting 3 quotes right now to bring aeration into the system this year. If you recall, we put it on the CIP last year, and this body approved that. We've got 2 quotes back so far. We're waiting on a third one we anticipate having any day. They range between $500,000 for solar up to a little over $2 million. We asked for $500,000, so you can kind of see where my mind is going on that. But we are working on quotes on that right now, so it is something that we hope to have in place this year.
So Jordan, with the slide before, we have at 85% capacity, we have 2,100 EDUs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but then you're saying our load is more. So is it we just have more solids than we're not getting rid of?
Yeah, so it'll just accumulate quicker. You might get more odors. Some of the treatment that you're hoping to occur in the front is actually probably going to occur on the backside in some of your winter storage ponds. So you might get a little more solids built up there. But the reality is you're not getting anywhere near your permit limits for these on the discharge. So it's best practice to have aeration, but we wouldn't say that this is limiting your growth.
Yeah.
We wouldn't say that that's you've got to put a moratorium on it because of this. No, this is more of like best practice.
Right, and I guess my question is then when we say solid load, does that mean we just have to go in and dredge it out and get rid of it a lot more often than normal?
It would be a little bit more, may make it into the subsequent cells.
Right.
Yeah. Like
but it doesn't affect our discharge into the farm then?
No, it's not affecting your discharge into your farm.
Yeah, so this last third bullet, some of the risks, James touched on these, like they could become septic, odors, increased COD load, which you do have a permit limit for. I've been helping for the past 10 plus years on your reuse reports that have to go to DEQ. You've never been anywhere close to the COD limit. And actually DEQ's been taking those out of recent permits they've been putting in. And like maybe some disinfection difficulties, but like odor hasn't been a problem. Like those are some of the risks, and like James said, your system is bigger, it's got a lot of wind out here. It's like we haven't really seen these signs show up yet. So like James said, it looks like it's at capacity, but we wouldn't say it's your limiting factor for growth.
If someone were to write a book, you would be an outlier. Be like, yeah, this works sometimes out here at Mountain Home. Yeah.
Can I get a little extra clarification from you? Because it's not my expertise by any means, but when you make the comment that we're at capacity, and then you're also saying, like, we can keep going, am I hearing you right?
Yeah, so based on industry standards, you're at capacity, but it's not like a regulated standard, like the headworks regulated. You have to have firm capacity. These are like best practices.
best practices say we're at capacity, but the permit says
For the treatment, for the treatment, but what we're saying is, if you're not getting odors and you have extra storage on the backside, you know, you're still getting the treatment you need. So even though you're not based on best practices there, you know, we've been thinking you're on the cusp for the last 20 years. But I mean, you still haven't been getting odor complaints, and I mean, it's if you didn't do anything, you would begin, eventually you'd start to experience more odors in those ponds, and you'd probably end up finding that you'd have to have a little bit more the treatment occurring in cell 5 as the flow went from 4 to 5 and then to the rest of your lagoons.
So Chris, where are we putting those aerators?
Cells 1 and 2.
1 and 2?
But right now the flow's kind of splits between those two cells from the headworks. So when the headworks was installed, added pipes so that it could split it, because at that time it all went into just cell 1. So it's, yeah, you do have, like, it does work with those two cells now.
Go ahead, Councilwoman.
In these numbers, is there computation at all for anything that the county brings in? Because they dump all of their sewer into ours.
There isn't, I mean, it is accounted for, but overall it's relatively small.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
yeah, the septic.
Yeah, the
loading
septic
is part of
dumps,
the-
yeah.
Is part of the
Mhm.
annual, so that, they have a septic receiving station at the headworks.
Mhm.
So that will show up in the composite readings that the
Okay.
city does.
Okay. And then one last question, just for clarification. So the 2121, we'll use the worst case because that's what I think is the safest number. That includes what we've already approved, or does not include what we've already approved as far as our EDUs?
Talking the previous slide.
Yeah.
Sorry if you answered that. My brain was going.
We're gonna, that one.
Yeah.
Oh, remaining. Okay, I apologize. Okay,
So
thank you.
That would be based on what's connected, right? Not
Yeah.
necessarily what's committed. So
That's-
as you do as we develop the tool, we can reflect like, hey, there's 2,100 that's available, of which maybe you've committed 400. And
Okay, so that doesn't necessarily include all of the subdivisions that we've already kind of committed to.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, then we are close to capacity then. Or will be, would be.
And again, I'm kind of with Councilman Brennan on this. I'm asking questions I know nothing about. Is seepage a problem at capacity?
We'll get to seepage in a
We'll
minute.
get there in a few slides. Yeah.
Yeah, seepage is it's a surprisingly big influence in the overall capacity calculation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Real quick, while we're at this stage of discussion, the capacity in cells 1 and 2, where a lot of the biologic action is happening. From the July 23 study, we had an entry in here regarding our choices on what we might be able to do in the future. One was the status quo of keeping with Class C effluent reuse, continuing to utilize the lagoons, and landfilling biosolids. In the discussion about aeration in cells 1 and 2, is it appropriate for us to also consider dredging, landfilling the biosolids out of that? In that study, I remember that having a lot of sludge depth in areas of cells 1 and 2.
Yes.
So I think that's
part
the
of
nature
the
of the question.
ongoing. You look at a mechanical plant, and there's pumps and pipes and valves and all kinds of things you do with the lagoons. It's sort of like you've let it flow and you forget about it for 20 years, and then or 40, and then the maintenance becomes when you have to dredge. So it's, I think, as that accumulates, there comes a point where you need to dredge that out. There's companies that specialize in that. I think I've shared in the past with the city. I think there's some products you can probably experiment a little bit with too. They can put out that will sort of you encourage the right bugs that might eat some of that, so you can kind of get a little bit more life there. The aeration will actually allows a little more decomposition there, so your sludge buildup will go down a little bit as well. So all those things will play in, but eventually, yeah, you'll have to dredge them. And at this point, especially those first four, the amount of costs associated with dredging and given the remaining life in those, it may be best to just try to time it to when you want to reline it, because you could spend $500,000 dredging a lagoon, and if you have to drain it anyways to reline it, that's a good time to do it.
Two birds, one stone. Yeah,
do it in one step. So I think that's something to kind of keep an eye on from a maintenance standpoint, and you do have a couple ponds that we're predicting will probably fail, and when you do your next test in 2029, and so we've kind of factored that into some of the projections, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah, I think that's part of the overall maintenance strategy.
Understood. Thank you.
All right, we'll keep going. Okay. All right, so now we'll start talking about the winter storage lagoons. So in this, we calculate the available storage in your winter storage lagoons, and on paper it should be a relatively straightforward calculation. What comes in, what goes out equals your change in storage. And you can see what kind of major things come in and out of your ponds here. You got your wastewater flows coming in, your precipitation, that's your rain and snow, evaporation, seepage, and your irrigation going out to your field that's coming out. But these change from year to year. Some years are going to be hotter, some years are going to be wetter. So we use average numbers for precipitation and evaporation, and we have your last seepage test, so we were able to plug those numbers in for your lagoons there. And just wanted to touch a little bit on your historical irrigation, the flows coming out of the lagoon to the reuse site. That's what's shown in this green line, and these are in acre feet. So you can see it's been quite variable over the past 10 years. In 2017 here, and then in 2024, just this last year, it looks like there was a little bit more effort to get more water out of those lagoons. And in 2017, that was the kind of snowmageddon year where we had a lot of precipitation. And then last year, the ponds were full, so there was a little bit more effort to get more water out. I will say, under irrigating with your wastewater, so that'd be like times where this green line dips down and this blue line is the supplemental water that comes from the farm well. So when you're irrigating less with your wastewater and more with your supplemental water, you could start to accumulate water year after year in your lagoons, and you run a risk there of maybe you're not technically over capacity, but because maybe you're not quite managing them right, you could set yourself up for them being at capacity in the future.
So I'm not sure, excuse me real quick. It was my understanding, and maybe I need more to the story, but it was my understanding that the farm that's using this water has asked for more water in the past, and we are only allowed to irrigate so much of it.
I think there's two parts. There are restrictions in how much land water you can put on.
Yes.
But it varies based on the crop, but it's based on the crop's needs. So it's like alfalfa might be 40 inches of water in a season.
I guess my point in asking the question is do we possibly need to revamp and revise our farm contract if they could use more water, get a little bit more out?
Yeah, and I think that's part of the strategy, which we'll talk about.
Oh, okay, I'm jumping ahead, I apologize.
Sometimes we have competing interests, right? The farmer wants to farm the way he wants to farm, but it's a land application site. So I mean, the first thing that has to be prioritized is the farm is part of the treatment process. So that might mean at some point in the future that all you grow is alfalfa, because that has the highest amount of water consumption.
Do we do it for the farm or do we do it for our lagoons?
You do it for exactly for your treatment.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
there's that's the kind of give and take. You're not farming yourself. You're leasing that, so that needs to be things you work out with the farmer. And it's going to vary from year to year, and as you grow, and depending on how much acreage you have and how much volume you need to get, that might dictate how you manage that. So there's that, and then the other thing I think we've kind of learned as we've watched these over the last few years is it's just how important it is to try to get those ponds empty at the end of the season, because and that and that kind of goes back a little bit to the crop, because if he goes and harvests and he's done in middle of July, and then you start accumulating from mid-July all the way to the following spring, then that's a lot more water you've got to worry about getting rid of. So there's definitely a strategy in how to best manage that, and so that's one of the takeaways I'm sure that the staff will work with is how to best manage that site so that you can get the most out of your treatment process.
Yeah, I mean, it's at least a way to help us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's our tool.
Yeah, just like James was saying, the last bullet there, your goal should be at the end of the season, like in October. Ponds should be at their low level. They won't be completely empty. Some of them have to have a little bit of water at the bottom to protect their liner, but to their low levels. So what does that look like what do the numbers look like specifically? So a lot of numbers here, but we have your influent coming in month after month. Irrigation going out, and this is your average irrigation. So from the previous slide, that green line, we took the average year and said, okay, that's what's coming out with your irrigation. Here's your seepage, that's pretty constant. You got precipitation coming in, evaporation going out, and that'll give you your net storage. So for October, we're saying at the end of October, you'd have 17 acre feet of storage. And then in the next month, November, there would be 86. So this cumulative storage adds the previous month with the net storage. So now you got 103 in your ponds. And so we look at that month after month until we get to a maximum, which looked like it was about 472. Those are in acre feet. We convert it to million gallons over here. And so the maximum storage needed under this scenario is 154 million gallons. And you have 239 million gallons of available storage. And so when we compare that to your storage per EDU, we're showing that you have about 2,400 EDUs left of capacity in the lagoons. But kind of like we said before, looking at that 85% capacity mark, that would be more like 1,400. Okay. So we're going to the next slide. So that was one scenario. That was your existing lagoons, average irrigation, and that's what you're seeing right here in this column, that 2,400 and 1,400 remaining EDUs. So we looked at a couple different alternatives or scenarios.
Yeah, maybe just point out that number's lower than the headworks. So this is sort of the bottleneck, if you will, of your treatment process. So when we've talked about what's the next project you need to stay ahead of growth, we've been talking about adding another more storage.
And then does your graph take into account of the 200,000 we've been able to save from going into all the current good water?
It does not reflect that, so that's going to just give you a little bit more.
Yeah.
So right now, we did look at the previous 12 months to compare to the average flow, and it is there, so it's something you can reassess. My experience has been with I&I reduction is you take it out, and then 5-10 years later, somewhere it found its way back in. So I mean, it's kind of an ongoing program. So I'd be cautious to count on it for perpetuity. But it's definitely something you can manage, and maybe after you get a track record and you say, yeah, that's it. But I would say, yeah, keep an eye on it. Don't take it to the bank quite yet.
Right. Well, and
But that is something that we're definitely working on. So we were able to do the 200,000 this year. We're looking at College Park. We think we can get another 200 out of College Park if we line those lines. and it's fairly affordable to do that. We're working on getting a quote right now. We're also going to do Tiger Alley. We have a lot of infiltration through Tiger Alley, so we're going to divert that into the stormwater system away from the lagoon system. And then we have Owyhee Court is another big area that we've already identified. So we've got those projects that we want to bring online this year that will help with that. And then I have my wastewater guys out looking for more manhole infiltration that we were able to fix this year with the 6 manholes. We're going through that entire area on the west side of town and looking at those. And so we're going to continue based on what they recommend to try and identify.
Maybe in 2 years from now, you come back and you, in this tool, you say, hey, it's no longer 35,000 gallons I need to plan per person. I need to plan on 28,000 because that's what the new standard is, and then it will show up in your thing. But right now we're taking an existing snapshot based on historical, so there is a little bit of conservatism based on that, and we hope you get more, just like you're planning on.
That's my plan.
Yeah, that's what we like.
Did I understand your question right? Is you're talking about taking stormwater from some of these streets and whatnot, which is currently running into the lagoon system, and diverting it to other ponds?
Some of it's stormwater and some of it's groundwater.
Groundwater is a big source.
High water table in some of those areas, and it's infiltrating into our sewer lagoon system and going out. It's like perfectly good, clean water going out to our wastewater area, where we would rather just keep it in the ground.
And by lining, that keeps the infiltration out of the pipes and...
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, we were able to do 6 manholes, and basically what we did is a water reactive polymer that we lined them with. And it basically it took away the path of least resistance, which is why James is saying eventually they'll find another path of least resistance. But in the interim, it's re-injected into the aquifer and keeping it out of our treatment.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, we're hoping to get 1 million a day out of it.
But I mean, there is a point of kind of diminishing returns that you find. I mean, typically, if you look at what your wintertime water usage is, about 90% of that makes it back into the wastewater. So that's about as low as you're going to get. So if you get below that, then you have to worry about exfiltration. Yeah, let's keep talking. We'll talk about some other scenarios we looked at.
Okay, yeah, so we looked at 2 scenarios under average historical irrigation. That's the one we just got finished talking about. And then we said, okay, what if you add your cell 10 that we've been working on? That would give you approximately another like 3,200 EDUs. So you'd be where's my mouse? Like at 85%, you'd go up from 1,400 to 4,500. Then we looked at another scenario. This is IWR irrigation. This is IWR stands for irrigation water requirement. That is the theoretical amount of water a crop needs to grow properly, and the Department of Water Resources publishes those numbers specific for specific crops and their location. And so pulling those numbers for the Mountain Home area and alfalfa, if we plug those in for your existing lagoons, you could go from 2,400 up to 2,500, or 1,400 up to 1,500. So there's a little bit of efficiency you could gain there just by working with the farmer to strive to irrigate those crops at their optimal need. Okay, here's where kind of the interesting part comes in, the seepage. Cells 1 and 8, last time we tested those, they were not failing, but they looked like they were on a trajectory to probably fail when we test them again in 2029. So we said, okay, what if the seepage rate from those 2 cells is something very minimal if we got them relined? And so that's where at 85% you would only have about 560 left.
Jordan, real quick, can we? I think the term failure might come across catastrophic in some instances.
I mean,
can we
the
put
standard
some
is
definition to it?
1/4 inch per day is what they allow for seepage. So as soon as you have more seepage than the allowable seepage, they say you have to reline them.
Okay. Wonderful.
That right now in Idaho it's 1/4 inch per day. So just imagine that's how much, if it drops that much in a day, they're saying that that's too much for a pond. So that's, and if it's an 1/8 of an inch, if it's a lined pond, so it's even stricter standard for those. So right now, most of your clay are already above the 1/8 of an inch. It's that, but the 1/4 inch is what's allowed for what those clay. And, you know, and that's what would happen if you line those two, you'd get a lot, you'd kind of plug in a hole. I mean, if you look back at the previous slide, it's like 60,000 or 60, what was it, 60 acre, what was the number? It was 66 acre feet per month is what's going into the ground from your seepage. So it's that's
a significant amount.
Yeah, it's and a lot of that's coming from those clay ponds. So you plug them up, you line them, and then suddenly that capacity went from 1,400 to 500.
And that's because of lack of seepage now. It's
Because of
holding it
lack of
all right
seepage.
there.
Yeah, you got rid of one of the outs, right?
All right.
Now it's not draining over the winter time. It's staying in the pond, and it's building up more storage.
Yeah.
And then that's where with the last one with cell 10 and the reline cells 1 and 8, it shows how that number drops from 4,500 EDUs to 3,700 EDUs. So still a lot of growth potential, but definitely less than, you know, if you hadn't had to line some of those other ponds.
And I'll just say, all these numbers assume that you can get those ponds to their low level at the end of the year. As soon as you stop doing that, you're just gonna start accumulating and setting yourself up for being at capacity down the road when you're really not at capacity if you managed it. So we're recommending just a little bit more coordination and management of the irrigation with the farmer. Yeah. We did update and look at the cost for the alternatives that were in the master plan, staying with the status quo, lagoons, land application, and a mechanical treatment plant. We did update those numbers for 2025 dollars, and we did assume lining 6 of those ponds of the 8. Even with lining 6 of them, the status quo keeping with the lagoons is still financially more attractive than a mechanical treatment plant, as you can see.
And just for clarification, this is not a plant of 140 million. This is a 20-year.
This is a 20
Yes.
20-year
Yeah.
projection. So this would be, if you wanted to say I want to plan it for 20 years, this is what you do. I would say with the pond options are going to be more incremental, because you're going to do your cell and then you're going to line whatever fails and you're going to put in the aeration. Where when you do mechanical, it's a bit of a commitment, because you got to put in the basins and the building for that 20-year from the beginning, and then you're going to probably end up spending at least probably close to the 100 out of the gate. Yeah, I guess some of that's operations cost, but you're going to spend a good chunk of that out of the gate.
Are you saying that relining 6 of the 8 lagoons gives us a 20-year additional estimated lifespan?
Typically, when you're looking at treatment, you're looking at a 20-year, but those liners, I would expect to be more on the 40-year mark.
Okay.
Right now, I think you're probably at the 20-year mark right now for cell 5-6, and I would project that would go another 20 years. Cell 9 is probably already at 40 plus years, and it's got almost no loss. I would guess it's going to go another 20 easily. It's probably got the least amount of all the infiltration, and I think what we're modeling kind of our new ones to have the pond liner itself completely covered. I think that's going to prolong the life of those. So yeah, I would guess you're going to get at least 40 years out of those ponds once you've committed and done a new liner.
Has the technology of the liners changed over the? We have one at 40 years. You said, like,
every pond that you down there has like a different liner. So like 5-6 is the HDPE, and it's pretty heavy duty kind of plastic. I think 9 might be PVC, which is, that tends to not quite be, it's quite a long life of HDPE, but when it's covered, it's got a long life, just like you think your PVC pipes. If you leave them out and it gets exposed to the sun, it gets brittle. So that's, the HDPE is not that way. But it's shown to have a really long life. I'm not sure exactly what's in cell 8, but I'm afraid every time I turn over a rock that it looks more like weed barrier than the actual liner. So that's one that we think will probably not pass in 2029. And then the rest of them, I think 7 has a hypalon. That's a different one around that. It's just the size, and then it's a clay bottom. And then the first 4 are all clay. So yeah, the clays are trickier because they, especially if you can't really use clay for winter storage because if it dries out, it cracks, and then it doesn't necessarily heal up right. So it's going to leak more and more if you let it dry out. So it's more suitable for the first 4 where you're trying to keep it a fairly steady level.
Thank you.
Okay, just one more slide here, just kind of wrapping things up. So just the Headworks, looking at things at the 85% capacity mark. Headworks has about 2,100 EDUs left. Treatment's at capacity with an asterisk. And your storage lagoon, I'm showing an ideal and a conservative, 1,500 to 560. One, the ideal is maybe you don't have to reline 1 and 8 in the next couple of years, but if you did, that would be the conservative number there. Also another takeaway is cell 10 would give you about another 3,200 EDUs, and just I think the main takeaway is like increased coordination and with the farmer to irrigate, get the cells down to their low levels at the end of each season to set you up for success going into the next year. And
yeah, I would just say the ponds themselves, there's 3 feet of freeboard built into that, those numbers as well, and that does give you a little bit of, for a wet year. When you get wind, you can get some pretty big waves too, and that's why there's riprap on those things. But and the city's also put in place some other contingencies. You have some non-growing season application in your permit that allows you to put a certain amount of water. So I think the city has been pretty proactive in trying to manage a lot of those things and build in some flexibility. But if we can get that dialed in at the end of the year, you're going to be, if you're looking, I need to wait a couple more years to get more funding or whatever, or for the lagoons, I don't think you're at the end of the, you're not necessarily at the end of the rope. There's a little bit of time to get that into place. But I would say, come 2029, when you do this next round of the seepage tests, if you start seeing some failures, then it's not only you're going to be looking at lining those, but you're going to be needing the extra storage as well. So if you can get that extra storage in before, you're going to be able to you're going to be able to spread out those capital costs a little bit more and not kind of be not so worried about getting rid of all the water on October 15th.
So if you were the city of Mountain Home, hypothetically, would you recommend cell 10 first, or would you recommend a CIP for lining the ponds first?
I would do cell 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we did just go back out for the grant.
Okay, good.
Last year, we've already applied for that again this year.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great.
Unfortunately, grant funding seems to be
It is shut down.
In fact, we just noticed today that a lot of the federal grant programs have got put on hold. So, and some of those affect some of the SRF funding. So, the possibility of getting grants may be harder. So, what that means is,
We need to plan for it.
ways. The bond market is actually an option that's available the city to pay a little bit higher interest rate, but it's going to be better than trying to go out on your own. So there's a municipal bond market. There's a state-backed program where sometimes they'll bundle multiple projects throughout the state. So you might get an interest rate that's maybe more like 4.5% on those, and that's another option too that you can do if you want to go it alone.
So, Paul, I got a question for you. The City Star does so they have their impact fees. They have
City of Star.
Yeah. And they also have a mitigation fee. You know where I'm going.
Yeah.
So, obviously, we have a hookup fee for wastewater, and that's where we utilize that hookup fee for, future.
Yeah, that's separate.
Right. So is that something we could add to water and wastewater, a mitigation fee?
No.
No.
No, that would be construed, there's two ways that you can quote fund enterprise funds like that. There's impact fee route, and then there's exaction route. And so you don't get to do both. Well, you actually can do both. There's a way to do that, but it's in lieu of. And so you can't double dip on it, because then that becomes an unlawful tax.
So there's Nampa is an example where they've probably been one of the few in the state where they've gone the impact fee route, where they've tried to recoup future utility costs in their impact fee. And then they'll do their connection fee based on a reimbursement. So the city could do something like that. I would say we've done a fair amount of the connection fees. The last one we did for Mountain Home was like 20-something years ago, and I would say there's a lot of change to the courts and stuff like that. And I would want to redo that more thoroughly, but if you were to want to look at the impact fee, that would be something either we partner with and look at, or you bring in someone like FCS, their financial consultant that did Nampa's. So if that's something you're interested in, they are, I would say they're probably the most experienced in the state when it comes to navigating the utilities.
These currently are right where they need to be, too low, too high.
If you compare them, in the past, we've just been, the city historically just raised them based on like the ENR index. And I think that they're probably fairly in line with what's out there. But we haven't really looked at it to say this is what we think the maximum amount you could justify in a lot of years.
But it isn't quote unquote what's out there. So it can neither be revenue generating, nor you cannot go into the hole. It has to be a self-sustaining fund.
Right.
And so and some cities get into trouble because they look at what their neighboring jurisdiction does and say, well, we'll just do that.
It's got to be, you have to be able to justify it based on your utility. So you look at,
you break it down to the EDU.
You break it down to the EDU, you look at each component, you've got to look at if it was grant funded, maybe that gets excluded because you didn't pay for it. There's a lot of undefined areas. How do you develop or deal with developer contributed capital? What's replacement? Is that existing dollars or depreciated dollars? So where you could give you a pretty big range of what you could potentially justify that hasn't been litigated in court, but there's
And also, as far as impact fees, they're highly restrictive, and so they have a time frame you have to use them by. It's too restrictive to use that or to count on that money. I think it's 10 years. 7 years. So that's not a lot of time to plan. And get the money. And then use it. We're basically counting on gray sky. We have a lot of construction projects that have not come to fruition yet. So we'd be banking on gray sky.
You just have to earmark it.
Okay.
But
fair.
Same.
Yeah.
P&Z. What do you got? Council?
Couple quick questions. James, earlier you'd mentioned the permit related to land application, and that we have kind of a specified volume of water that we can land apply. Do we have any further options in front of us if we were to approach an expansion of that volume ability? Like, say we were to make a partnership with another farm down the road that's going to commit to saying, okay, we would like to land apply, you have the water, we need the water, and currently we may not have the permitting to do that. Is there any option?
You can certainly expand your land application area. In fact, I mean, when we first started, it was probably half the size. So the city has acquired and that's a lot of foresight really on the previous council and
very much so.
Some of you, I guess, too, as far as getting some of that tied up and permitted. We haven't yet completed that part. It's not the existing bottleneck, but once you do the ponds, it might become the next thing that needs to get expanded. So, and to maximize, so you get your land, and then you can maximize what you put on it based on your crop. Alfalfa is usually the highest, but you can look at other farms. You can also look at other types of disposal. The rapid infiltration is a type of disposal, but it triggers the mechanical treatment. So you got to get to a higher level of treatment to be able to, before they'll let you sort of infiltrate it into the ground.
Understood. Thank you.
James? On page 3, it says evaluation in progress for the land application site. When that is completed, what information will you exactly provide?
We'll give you something like this table that shows like what's the capacity of that is. Yeah.
The farm has about 350 acres of farmable land right now. So we would quantify, okay, this 350 acres can support this many EDUs, and compare that to your existing EDUs and give you a number like you have this many EDUs left before you would need to expand and get more acreage.
What's your estimated timeline for that answer?
Next month. Yeah.
Next month?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we've approved all these developments that haven't come to fruition. And let's say I had a development that wanted to come here tomorrow. They are ready to rock and roll. They want to pull building permits. We're copacetic right now to let them go ahead and do their thing up to being 85%. Let's just be cautious. Let's just do it 1,500 EDUs.
Yeah.
So it's first come, really first serve in Mountain Home.
Yeah, I don't know what your commitment letters are, but yeah, you can add 1,500 more from what's there today before you get into trouble. And I would say, even though the 560s is that problem, I would encourage going closer to the 1,500 because that's another 1,000 connections that you can collect fees on that you can help pay for that expansion when you're going to need it.
Chris, how many homes are in the pipeline?
Over 2,000 that have been approved, but obviously they've not pulled permits yet.
I'm looking at the report sent by Brenda, I think earlier this month. It shows there's, if I'm reading it right, there's 1,403 under final plat right now. The preliminary plat stage is 1,235. In application stage is 411. And then there's been over 1,200 expired or denials. So just final plat alone, we're touching the edge of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, this is the 85 percentile, so maybe that's a little bit how you want to manage your system, because maybe you feel comfortable giving the Wilsers up to that 100%, but know that when you get to the 85, that's when you want to say, okay, where's our financing? Is this project? Let's get it going, because I want it to be available before you bump up against 100.
If we were magically to have the total project cost today and say, okay, we've got all this cash in our pocket, we want to do Lagoon 10, how long would the build out, like including like the engineering, the full build, and like be ready for use?
Be ready by a year from now. We've already got it mostly designed. So it's been mostly designed. We've been kind of put on hold when the funding didn't come through like we were hoping. So you could get it done pretty quick.
How much is cell 10 to build?
It's like 10.5 million. Is that where we?
10.8 is what we estimate.
Yeah.
That's what we asked for, anyway.
Yeah.
So it's my understanding if we have homes in final plat, they have the right to hook up. Paul?
Still have
Chris?
not applied for building permits.
Okay, so it's at building permit stage. Okay, all right. I was confused.
Also worth noting that one of the things the council did last year was approve the technology upgrade for the farm, and we did complete that upgrade so that all of the land application tools are now electronic, so that we can track more accurately when we are applying to it, and we have a better control on how that flows. So that's going to provide something this year as well.
Awesome.
Okay. Council, you got the brain trust up there. P&Z, what do you got? Anything for them?
No, thank you for sharing. Very, very informative. Appreciate that.
This is great. Thank you, guys.
Council, anything else for James, Abby, and Jordan?
Mayor?
Councilman Brennan?
Not for these three. Apologize. For other department heads and staff, I'd just like to float an idea. What would we feel about sending like written formal notice of like a cliff notes of this cliff notes letter to everybody that has a final plat or maybe a preliminary plat, and let them know like the stance of the city council is first come on building permit wins, right? So I know we've put that language in a lot of our preliminary plats, but to kind of I don't know, in my mind I see like it would reduce the liability on the city when they go through all the work and now all of a sudden we're out, and that could be a ways down the road, but I don't think it would cost much to send a few flyers out to the applications on here to say this is how close we are to not being able to provide a service until we expand. And any thoughts on that?
Copacetic?
I like it.
Honestly, I think that's a great idea. Paul, do you anticipate any legal issues with a notion like that?
To the department heads?
No. Like, if the city were to choose to send that kind of notice out to the applications, like, say, preliminary, final plat status.
I think it would, yes, I think that would be very wise.
Okay.
To, on every single one, as a standard condition of approval even, I realize you say that it depends on capacity, but do a note-taking of that statistic that Brenda provided. And just bear in mind, we're not going to deny your application on the basis of this, certainly not at final plat, but when you're out there trying to sell lots, be aware.
Yeah.
You got this number out there, this number available.
If it gets closer to the limit, you might find a bunch of people trying to come and get permits. I'm going to buy all the permits for my subdivision. Kind of get them tied up. And
then you need to be, we're rather loose in, with your building permit expiring, saying, oh yeah, we'll extend it. We will not be when we're getting close to the mark like that.
Paul, what is our limit? When does a building permit expire?
6 months, right?
Yeah. And they can ask for
They can ask for an extension, but we might want to look at our code.
To be clear with the extension, the permit itself doesn't essentially expire as long as there's active construction going on, and it's 6 months from the date of the last inspection. So as long as, 3 months later, they're still moving forward, that 6 months starts again. That's my understanding, and Chris can
Yeah, no, you're
confirm
absolutely
that.
right. But the nice thing about it is if you do have that guy that walks in and says, I'm gonna buy 300 building permits, he's not gonna be able to build 300 houses that fast. So that's where the safeguard falls. They can't just come buy them, because then they have to start construction before they lose them.
So I want to look at our code just because I don't want to have somebody come in and try to take 300 building permits and then move a shovel of dirt per day.
Yeah.
On all 300. Done for the day.
One stick of lumber.
That's
Just
where
every
the
6
inspection
months.
comes
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
So
Hard at work.
For a standard home, we have a series of inspections, the foundations, the underfloors, so on and so forth. They have to show progress by completing those
The next
inspections.
increment
It
step,
can't just be a shovel. Yeah, I like that.
I was joking, but
I'm tracking with you.
if you set a standard, somebody will always be trying to go right up to the edge of it. So you just got to make sure that standard is clear and unequivocal.
Paul, are you recommending the council do a once-over on that, on the language of an expiring building permit?
I'm recommending that Chris Brennan and I at least take a look at it. Maybe it's fine. Maybe the language is just fine, but when the hair on the back of a lawyer's neck goes up, you pay attention to that.
Okay. And should we delay in sending like a kind of a notice of
No,
until after you do that review?
no, I think the two go independent of each other.
Okay.
If we need to fix our code a little bit, we'll do that.
Okay.
It's not going to be much.
Can it just come from the City Mountain Home rather than the council?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just the City Mountain Home. Here, hey Joe, just checking in. Here's where we're at. Here's what we found out.
Right.
I mean, because we want them to come here. I mean, we don't want to chase them off and be like, well, we don't want you. You know, come. You better come tomorrow.
Right.
So I think, treat it with kid gloves. Like, hey,
Just
this is
informative.
real. Like, we have real problems potentially. If you want to come here.
Councilman Brennan?
Yes.
And is that notice just to those folks who have applications in, whether they be in a final stage or preliminary stage? Just something that's already within our system?
Correct.
That's what I believe, yeah. Are we good to?
Brenda, you cannot send a letter to everybody that's ever done anything in Mountain Home. I know you want to.
I do not.
Mary, you okay?
Yeah.
With Brenda doing that at our request? Okay.
Paul and Chris, if I could.
Well, yeah, I'm
get
gonna
your
have-
The verbiage on that?
Yeah.
That would be helpful as well. Unless you want to throw Keller in there.
We already know you're going to do it with a Christmas card.
Okay. All right.
All right, thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
Drive safe.
Yeah, thank you.
And 3 engineers talking, and I stayed awake.
I know, amazing.
All right.
They should
They haven't left the room yet, Paul.
P&Z, you're more than welcome to stay, but I guess you can adjourn your meeting if you want.
Planning and zoning will be adjourned.
All right. And we'll go back to Robert's Rules of Orders. And then what we're going to do is run down to recognize the persons in the audience. Would anybody like to get up and speak? Okay. Conflict of interest declaration. Has any councilman received information pertaining to or otherwise had any contact with any person regarding any items on the city council agenda? If so, please set forth nature of contact. Hearing none, we're going to run to consent agenda. Does council need any more clarification on anything on the consent? If not, I ask Councilman Brennan.
I'd like to pull item H from consent.
Okay.
Mayor,
Councilman Harjo.
I think this is a question more for Paul. On the regular city council meeting minutes, there was a reference in the minutes to the addition of our executive under subsection D in the description, but farther down in the meeting minutes itself, when entering executive, I don't think it's referenced. I think we'd reference F and B in the full text of the statute title, but not D. Should we add that?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor,
Councilwoman Workla.
I want to pull D and I want to pull G. And then I have a couple of questions for clarification. On the bill run, page 1, under admin, it says Gym Outfitters, treadmills, freight assembly, $2,824.87. And then on page 6, it says that as well under fire. So I just wanted clarification on why it's listed twice under two different.
Go ahead, Tiff.
I'll at least speak on that. The treadmills in the training facility are broken. They're not under warranty, and we've been limping them along to get to a new budget year. It was approved to purchase one out of the admin budget. However, the second machine to continue to repair it will cost a lot of money. So the police department and the fire department have actually split the expense to purchase the secondary, so that we will have commercial grade treadmills within the training facility to withstand the maintenance.
Okay, thank you. And then I just have one more question. We were receiving Wells Fargo statements and receipts, but that stopped. Are we able to get those again?
Yeah, I don't know. It probably just Sue missed it, I guess. So.
Okay. I think that's all I have.
All right, council. Is there anything else? Obviously, we're going to annotate Scott's request, pull D, G, F. Is there anything else?
It was H, Mayor.
Yes.
D, G, and H.
Yes. What did I say?
F.
Oh, I'm sorry. Anything else? If not, then is there a motion to pass consent, pulling the three and fixing the verbiage? Councilman Brennan?
Make a motion to pass the consent agenda, pulling items D, G, and H, and changing through interlineation Councilman Harjo's comments.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Councilwoman Garvey?
Aye.
Councilman Brennan?
Aye.
Councilwoman Workla?
Aye.
Councilman Harjo?
Aye.
Mayor, do we need to,
He
do we need to add executive session, Mayor?
Oh, I did in the beginning.
Okay.
He corrected it though today.
Did your motion have D, F, G, and H?
No,
just
D,
D,
G,
G,
and
and
H.
Was that supposed to be
I
one?
thought Councilwoman Workla said F.
I said D and G.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
No.
Okay. We'll run down to, hang on a second here. Run down to old business action item, deliberation decision to amend city ordinance 164 to include the requirement of live stream video recording publication regarding all special, regular and special city council meetings and planning and zoning commission. Councilman Harjo.
Yes, this is one we were bringing back for formalizing under the formatting and assigning an ordinance number. All the textual changes, I believe, have been made, and the removal of subsection B of section 5 that was unclear and determined not necessary. And I think this is ready to move forward.
Do I have a motion?
Mayor?
Councilman Harjo?
I'll make a motion to approve sorry, I'm going to get back up here to the language. To approve the deliberation decision to amend City Ordinance 1-6-4 to include the requirement of live stream video recording and publication for all regular and special meetings of the City Council and Planning and Zoning Commission.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Councilman Workla?
Aye.
Councilman Harjo?
Aye.
Councilman Brennan?
Aye.
Councilwoman Garvey?
Councilwoman Garvey's going to vote nay because I think the city has done a really good job on trying to accommodate this request, and I think adding this makes it hard when sometimes we might have some stuff come up, so I vote nay.
Run down to old business action item, deliberation decision to amend ordinance 1-6-4 subsection F city council agenda. Councilman Brennan?
I feel like I got my comments out last time. I don't exactly remember why it was delayed.
Mayor?
Councilman Harjo?
I think, Councilman Brennan, I think we had, in the process of having the discussion on that, not having the mayor present, not having Councilwoman Garvey present, that it was appropriate to discuss that one with the full council, and I think that's why we set it aside.
Okay.
The last time.
Mayor.
Councilman Brennan?
With that, I know I had asked Paul if a one notice for everything would suffice, and you're kind of on the fence, but it sounded like you said it would work, but maybe not the cleanest approach.
Can you give me context again? I don't remember the 1.6.
If I
It's not in the packet.
oh
so
sorry,
I-
it's the
What was this one again?
any council member can add to the agenda
Oh.
by themselves, and
He's like,
and then it was I can tell Tiffany for the next year that I will approve. You know, like one blanket statement.
I do not believe one. Yeah. I can't say there's an outright prohibition to doing this, but I will say that I think that that is inconsistent with the state code as it defines how agendas are set, and then secondly, the power of an individual council member to do anything. So the process that we've been utilizing, I said all this last time, so, but the process we've been utilizing where indirectly behind the scenes, so long as it is in a substantive discussion as to the merits or lack thereof of whatever the recommendation is, if everybody's like, yeah, I'm okay to have that on the agenda, which you said you'll always do, then that doesn't violate the open meetings laws, and it also is a way to then have it on. But I do think it's inconsistent with the state code. I can't say an outright prohibition, but I do think it's inconsistent with the state code that would allow an individual council member who has no power on their own, because you act as a body, to add something unilaterally dictate if something will be on the agenda.
Do you know the statute by chance off the top of your head that you're referencing?
All in Title 50, Chapter, I think that's, what is the city council stuff, 6. 8 is the mayor one, I think. It's throughout Title 50 in Title 50.
706.
706? Okay, and 706. 706 I thought was the one that, oh, and then so with the other thing that I would add, pile on that pile, is, and there's I lost a Supreme Court case and I got quoted this stupid Latin phrase, which I had nightmares about for weeks. Anyway, it's, and I won't say it in Latin because you guys will make fun of me forever, but where a statute specifies certain things, that means it negates all others. And so the fact that the statute expressly provides for the city council may set not only their own city council meeting, but they could set their own agenda. So if that means the whole city council member can do that pursuant to a specific statute, that means it does not apply but for that.
Okay.
And that's another thing to add on the pile. I just don't think it's within the law to do that. But I can't tell you that it's an outright prohibition. It doesn't outwardly negate a statute, but if you read those statutes together, that is what it means.
Okay.
So,
Tiffany, what code did you just reference? 50.
706.
5706 is the one where they get to call their own
Special meeting.
Mayor?
Councilwoman Garvey.
I listened to snippets of last 2 weeks' meeting ago. And
On your birthday?
I did not listen to it on my birthday. I think what we have going on right now seems to be working well. And I think that if we changed it to one council person and one council person goes rogue or whatever, and they keep adding stuff to the agenda, it just, there's no vetting to it. There's possibly no merit to what could be added. And one person does not have a vote. I mean, we have to have a quorum, the three of us, or two with the mayor. So I think what we have going on right now seems to be working. The three of you have it all down pat.
The three of us?
The only thing I'd add to that, again, where a statute specifies some things, it means it negates others, is even at the beginning of a meeting, while we're all here, does one member of the council get to amend the agenda to add something to it? Nope. It requires a vote. Or the city council, again, acting on it as a body, is the one that gets to pick it. So there's just statute after statute after statute. When you keep adding them all up, that's what that means.
I'll let it go. That's fine. Just to kind of, I guess not to make a point, but just a statement is, if it were to pass, right, one can do it. The statute still exists that a majority of the council can amend the agenda, right?
Yeah, like if they wanted to remove it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true.
And so if it was added and somebody goes rogue and the rest of the body doesn't like it, then at the beginning of the meeting you make a motion and remove it from the agenda so it can't be talked about. But whatever, that's fine.
Mayor,
Councilwoman Garvey?
that just adds extra paperwork, extra discussion for something that's already working.
Mayor.
So, Councilman Harjo?
I think our kind of informal mechanism that we're using now with the email process of one council person making the request, asking for the others to not add some substantive discussion in that and either agree or disagree with adding that. It is a system that works. However, it does lack a lot of formality. It lacks like a revision control. What I have concern with, I think, is if we get to the point where we are missing agenda items that have been requested and been approved by 3 or more council people, we're really relying on our own memories as council. I might make a request that ends up being on an agenda 6 weeks down the road, or that was the intent and we run past that date. Is there an appetite amongst mayor, staff, and council to maybe look at a tool to accomplish this that prevents us from having textual input, but like a voting system of like one person creates an entry, it has a revision control, you click yes or no, I agree or disagree, and away we go. And it eliminates the possibility of us overstepping open meeting law and making a violation without intent. I honestly think there's platforms out there that are no cost to us that could accomplish that kind of thing.
I have an idea. You could always pass sort of similar to this as a resolution, which is a quote-unquote policy, not a law, whereby we could set out a methodology for how the agendas are set. And one of the things would be is 24 hours or more prior to a meeting, should the city council wish to have an agenda item. Notice how I said city council, not a council member, wish to have something on the agenda without discussing it substantively. It could be requested of the city clerk or mayor and or other council members to place it on the agenda, and with consensus, it shall be. I mean, I'm bastardizing the language. Hopefully I'll be more articulate when I have more coffee, but basically that is a resolution. So now you get out of the one council member dictating that it's on the agenda, and now you have a resolution, so it becomes a policy, and where it's directed saying at the next city council meeting I'll have it, then it shall be on the next one. And then now it's a resolution as opposed to an ordinance.
What, yeah.
Councilman Brennan?
I'm not trying to be negative Nancy here at all, but policies don't necessarily, if I've heard you right in the past, policies don't necessarily have any force and effect on an elected official.
Not exactly. I think you're sort of, at least what I'm hearing you say is sort of how like a comprehensive plan isn't a law. It's a guide. Resolutions, while they're not law, it is dictating the process. So for example, I don't know where it is, but the thing that says at public hearings, be nice, take 3 minutes, don't be don't have repetitive testimony and all that. We enforce that in meetings. Like if somebody wanted to talk for 25 minutes and cuss out everybody in the room, it's like, well, no, we have that up there that says you can't do that. Well, how was that thing passed? By resolution. And so it's a policy. So is it a law? Like, I mean, if it's a law, what, am I gonna prosecute one of you because you tried to add something to the agenda? No. But it's the policy of the city council. So I don't think, I know you're not being a negative Nancy. There's a joke there with a rhyme with Brennan, but I couldn't come up with it. But I do think that it's a policy, and if there's a reason why you're not gonna follow it, I mean, that's something that, I mean, again, there's nothing I'm not gonna prosecute anybody for this. So whether it's an ordinance or resolution in that respect doesn't really matter, but you've established the policy of the city, so I think a resolution carries significant weight with enforcement behind it. Like,
Enforcement against who?
I was more speaking in line with 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, let's say, somebody wants something on the agenda, and it follows the resolution, the other council members and the clerk, it's all on there, and for whatever reason it doesn't get on there. You would address it in the meet. So for example, then, at the beginning of the meeting, if it wasn't done, you would amend the agenda and it would be placed on. I mean, it just will be placed on.
Okay, so just an example, you're not going to do this. I trust in you, right? But if a policy is created by us and the mayor says, I'm still not going to put it on there, we can't do anything at that
Other than
point.
amend the agenda at the beginning of the meeting and make sure it's on.
And at what point brings us right back to the same, the council having
I'm
to.
trying to give you the best solution I can come up with.
Sure.
I still think it's a matter of, I'm still putting a nice bow on a turd.
Okay. In regards to Councilman Harjo's comments about a system, I would still feel like there would need to be some kind of ability to track the public record. If we're all agreeing upon something, somebody would probably want to see that at some point. I don't know.
Any email that you send from a procedural nature on something being on the agenda is a public record.
What came to mind when he said that was like, you send out a survey monkey, right? Of like, yes or no. Like, how can we produce that later to show that as a matter of public record? But maybe your mind was somewhere else.
I haven't tested it. It looks like Outlook would handle that as a platform. Still contained within the email process, still records repeatable and searchable. I wouldn't mind testing that out, quite honestly, maybe with some staff off of, the council accounts, just to see if that process would work, if there's appetite for it.
Mayor,
Councilwoman Garvey.
can I get somebody to tell me what's wrong with what we're doing right now? Anyone?
Well, man.
Councilman Red?
I won't speak for Councilman Workla, but my observations of what happened is that 3 of us agreed for there to be an action item, right? And it appeared as a non-action item. And Tiffany has a reason for that.
Pretty sure the email says a discussion item.
Okay, Mayor. I'm sorry.
Councilwoman Garvey?
Okay, so when the agenda comes out on Friday afternoon and somebody sees that, how easy would that be to send an email to Tiffany and say, hey Tiff, I think there's a mistake here? I think we're getting into the woods on creating system. It's been working and our stuff is making the agenda. I think it's just adding more work.
Tefka.
It does say, and I'm sorry, it says action item discussion. It doesn't say decision. So therefore, that's where my interpretation of this is just a general discussion item. I will tell you, the last city council meeting had ordinance revisions in it. They weren't in our format. This resolution that is given you today, you don't know what House bill this is. We don't have any data on it, and Councilwoman Workla didn't provide anything to me until we walk in the building today. Therefore, it's not in the proper format. Therefore, clerically, I have to go back and hold on to it for 2 more weeks instead of just sharing the information at the very beginning of the discussion in the first email threads.
Mayor.
That's the frustrating part in this whole agenda item. All of it is a mystery.
Councilwoman Workla.
Well, that's not true because Jeff did forward you all my resolution last week
In an image.
and said that he's good with the resolution. So you guys did get the resolution, but I didn't
How I got
before
it from,
today.
From Schroeder was in an image format.
That you weren't able to open and read?
It was text, it was a screenshot of his cell phone in an image content.
Okay, well, so you received it, and if that was an issue, then I would thought maybe you would come to me. Okay, I don't want to get into the nitty gritty of this all, but I guess apparently we all have points to be made. I personally like what Councilman Harjo brought up with that outlook. If you want to approach that, or if you want to look into that further.
Mayor.
Councilman Brennan.
Tiffany, I'm not trying to cause a fight or point anything out. Councilwoman Garvey asked for an example, and that's like one little thing that came to my mind on that. And I feel like I was a little bit cut off, but I said you had an example or a reason as to why you did what you did. And I do recall that the same thing happened last time, right? So I was about to say that. And formatting aside, right? Like I don't know what obligation you want from us when we all vote yes to have something on an agenda. I don't think the entire language should be within our email because then you're basically having all the facts and information in front of you and you're kind of saying, yes, I'll hear it. So I don't know where that line is at, but like I said, like I'll drop it, whatever. If I have to say yes 100 times, I will.
Mayor.
Councilwoman Workla.
I mean, I see Councilman Brennan's point because, like, you were out of the country recently, right? So if I asked to put something on an agenda and you didn't get that email because you're out of the country, Councilwoman Garvey doesn't respond, but yet you all want it on there, right? So there's that tilt where, well, 2 want it on there, but we have to have 3, but 2 weren't able to communicate or didn't communicate. So, I mean,
Or
to your point.
Councilman Workla is say, hey, Mayor, I want this on there. I'm like, okay, cool. And I go, Tiffany, let's stick it on there.
Mayor?
Councilman Brennan.
I'll make a motion to table this item indefinitely.
A motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Councilman Brennan.
Aye.
Councilwoman Workla.
Aye.
Councilwoman Garvey.
Aye.
Councilman Harjo. Run down to items removed from the consent agenda. We're going to start out with item D. Approve the findings of facts for preliminary plat of 10th Street neighborhood subdivision with conditions. Councilwoman Workla, this one is, this one's yours.
Yeah. So I didn't want to be blanket approved underneath consent agenda because I voted nay at the, when this was at the meeting last. I wanted to have time to hear from Keller Associates and then deliberate from that information, and I still want to be honored that time, so that's why I pulled it off, because I'm gonna still vote nay.
Okay. Council, what do you want to do with item D?
Mayor.
Councilman Harjo.
With that, I'll make a motion to approve the findings of fact for preliminary plat for the 10th Street neighborhood subdivision with conditions.
Do I have a second?
Mayor,
Councilwoman Garvey.
I'm sorry, my brain's going. Can you refresh me what that was again?
Oh man, that was a while ago.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, ugh.
Brenda, come on down.
Sorry, Brenda. Thank you. I need.
Apologies if I don't get it.
It's all right. Something will jog my memory
So
really
that's
quickly.
on the east side of Silverstone. It was, I believe, 117 units going in there, and it has an existing PUD at that location.
Who's the developer?
Kaisa Cruz is.
Okay, we're good. Yep, that's all I needed. Thank you. Easy enough.
I was just
Second.
gonna hand it to you.
Thank you. Oh yeah, I did read that. Second.
Been motioned and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Councilman Harjo?
Aye.
Councilwoman Garvey?
Aye.
Councilman Brennan?
Aye.
Councilwoman Workla?
Nay.
We're going to run down to item number G, approve a preliminary plat extension for Airbase Commons, PZ 2387. Councilwoman Workla?
Again, with what we heard tonight, there's a lot to take in and process. There's also no vested right to have an extension of a preliminary plat. So with that being said, I will not approve this as well.
Council? Anything else?
Mayor?
Councilman Brennan?
Question for Paul. This is, in my eyes, kind of in alignment with the conversation we were just having a little bit ago about extensions.
Building permits,
Yeah, this is definitely not at the building permit stage. It's a preliminary plat extension, but I guess in light of the conversation, the facts that were presented today, what would your legal opinion be?
Well, it's up to you on the merits of extending. I mean, what I heard is that you can continue processing applications that were not at the 85% level yet, and that we have numerous things in the pipeline, et cetera, et cetera. But yes, if everybody came to get a building permit tomorrow, that would be an interesting scenario. So this is not requesting 300 of our last building permit spaces. It's merely an extension of a preliminary plat. However, the language of it being a vested right sounds awfully familiar to somebody who might have said that, and it is not. You're not automatically vested with extension after extension after extension. The first one's an easier one.
You can only get one.
Yeah, and so, but you are not, merely because you wish to have your preliminary plat extended, there's no, as opposed to if you're in an R4 zone and then you have a preliminary plat application where you're seeking all R4 uses, you don't have a lot of discretion to turn it down because it's an allowed use and it's perfectly in line with what the code provides. But nothing says you are entitled to an extension. So it's entirely up to you.
And what,
Now, we do typically give the first one.
for city staff, what is the process for, if a denial of an extension happens, is there a mandatory wait time frame for a reapplication, or how do they apply again?
It's 1 year from the date of the preliminary plat approval, not from the request for an extension.
Okay.
Correct.
So
And
they could just they can reapply, but then they have to go, that's a whole new application.
Just
And
as
all-
Mr. Mayor and Council, so just as a side note for this one is also an approved PUD. So there's an underlying PUD with this development as well. So, and we've never crossed the bridge of not approving an extension, since the code does allow for an extension, as long as they meet the requirements within that 30-day time frame, which this applicant has.
Right. Sorry, I don't unless I totally missed it. What if a denial of the extension were to occur? Is there a mandatory wait time
No.
for a reapplication?
No.
They could do it tomorrow.
Well, there is, correct.
Okay.
From 1 year, yes, they can request again probably the next day.
Okay.
So it, sorry, Councilman Brennan.
But
Oh,
I have another question. Does I didn't read the exact language of a renewal in our code. I'm more going on state code in my head.
Yeah.
But does it say thou shalt be given another extension?
I don't believe it says
I
thou
don't
shalt.
think it does either.
Correct. Yeah.
I wasn't a literal quote, but it says that it shall not be unreasonably withheld. It doesn't say anything like that, right? I don't think it does.
I don't have it memorized, but I don't think it does.
Okay.
Mayor,
Councilwoman Garvey?
does that affect the PUD?
Mayor, Council, so my understanding is the PUD still does exist. I also believe that perhaps it can be relooked at if it hasn't been constructed within a time frame, and I would assume.
It's a domino. Once one falls, the other would fall. It has, now if it's a PUD quote rezone, I mean, I suppose the rezone's still valid, but there's no preliminary plat at that point.
Mayor,
Councilwoman Garvey?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the preliminary plat extension for Air Base Commons.
Second?
It's been I just brain farted, sorry. It's been motioned and seconded. Any further discussion?
Mayor,
Councilman Brennan?
if this is approved, can we approve it on, I don't know, maybe a condition that the letter we spoke of goes out with the renewal, or I guess not a renewal, but the extension, just to give them a little, hey, you've been extended, but here's the facts. Here's the current conditions of our city for water, wastewater.
Can certainly send that, Mayor Council, the applicant is in the room tonight.
I think paperwork's important too.
Mayor,
Councilwoman Garvey?
I just want to say I'm sorry, that was in the packet about the case of Cruz. I just got in late from vacation last night, so I'm a little bit sorry about that.
So
I did
Paul,
read that.
You and Chris and Brandon will draft that letter so we can send that out to all the current sooner rather than later. Like,
Don't give me that.
okay. Yeah, you heard it. You all heard it. Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Councilwoman Garvey?
Aye.
Councilman Harjo?
Aye.
Councilwoman Workala?
Nay.
Councilman Brennan?
Aye.
All right, run down to letter H. Councilman Brennan?
Mayor, I don't really have any specific pointed questions, but more I'm hoping for maybe an explanation as to the need or to the desire for this project from staff.
Take that. You want to take it, Tiff? Chris, who do you want to take?
Mayor, I can. The purpose of hiring Clearwater Financial, we've worked with them in the past. It's just to ensure that we are financially doing the best with our funding sources, like some of our bonds, and our other financing options to make sure we're getting the best rates that we're paying for. We also will need a financial advisor to close out the LID when the time comes to close that out. And this company would do that as well. So, in about, what did you say, 5 years ago, Cameron, who now is with Clearwater Financial, he's the owner of Clearwater Financial. He was with Zion's Bank, and that's who we used prior. He represented the city at that time, and we just haven't renewed anything in current days. Did I get it all, Paula?
Yeah, and he'd also help you with your wastewater bonding.
Mhm.
You needed to go out for zero lagoon. This would be set in place for that. So it's under number 2, municipal advisor and financial services.
When Keller was here presenting, they gave another company that seemed to be in line with this as well.
I wrote that, FSC Financial.
Maybe, I don't know, I'll hold that thought for a second, but this is, I don't know what to compare this to for similar services of a municipality our size, but it looks like the basic retainer is $12,000 annually, and then I bet it seems like almost everything on top of that is an additional stuff to include like no limit for travel or meals or all of that. So I don't really know what this will truly cost the city.
I think this one is this is the one that costs the LID, right?
It would be for any build service.
Oh,
So-
yeah.
So
You
it's
move
billed
forward.
for service, so
Yeah.
it's no different than Paul, when we reach our max, he bills the service over and above.
Right, and I just like Googled FCS Financial.
Good
They're
old.
not located in Idaho.
Yeah.
These guys are in Idaho.
So at this point, it would just be billable service, so it'd be the retainer, obviously, to have them year round, and then if we were to pose questions to them, so if we wanted them to look at wastewater bonding, if we wanted them to look at refinancing of buildings or facilities or things of that nature, we would then pay hourly for those. And we could possibly get cost estimates and get those in front of you guys so you would know what that financial burden would be. But we just felt Councilman Harjo came in earlier, as staff and the mayor, we have a lot of moving objects and large ticket items, and so probably bringing on the financial advisor is a good idea at this time.
Mayor.
Councilwoman, Worklow?
I would be open to that cost analysis just because it says here, like what Councilman Brennan said, that if additional expenses, like he mentioned, travel, meals, communication, disclosures, print, software, data sources, and any other out-of-pocket expenses required, that's, to me, there's no end cost to that, right? And so if we can maybe get it that a little bit more streamlined to what it might cost.
Yeah.
So would we maybe need to table this for you to get that info?
I could, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to define down, like,
Sure.
I can't tell you, like, we're not gonna call out the team and say, let's come out and we're gonna have lunch and we're gonna buy your lunch. Like, our contact is going to be very limited in that capacity. It will be a lot of email traffic at that point, or phone conversations. So as far as like those added software implementations and those, I don't foresee any of that being a need.
Council, may I ask is, could I get a not to exceed number just so we can get them working on the closure and get our money coming back to the city? Councilman Brennan.
Where are we at on the financing of LID to actually get a loan to start, maybe not to start, but to complete, wrap up that project?
You have to have a financial advisor.
They do all that. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, haven't we gone out for loans already?
Not a bond.
We haven't asked any banks for money?
Oh, yeah, I went out and asked.
And?
It wasn't copacetic.
Mayor.
Councilman Harjo.
Tiff is very much right in this instance. The services that organizations like this offer, under professional services alone, the specifics would roll with the project intent. The requirements from us, the city, to this organization for closing out LID1 will be significantly different than that of acquiring funding or public engagement or so on for wastewater infrastructure projects. Their portfolio is really big, and as well, the founder of this organization lives here in Idaho, has municipal experience. Believe he was a Meridian City Councilman at one point. There's a wealth of knowledge behind this, and they've worked with a lot of other municipalities throughout southern Idaho, and quite frankly, there are a handful of projects at our feet here that we're going to have to start addressing soon, and our choices are hire the people with the expertise to do each individual task here and bring them on, or find a firm similar to this that fulfills these kind of tasks.
Mayor.
Councilwoman Garvey.
Section 4, costs, Section 4B. It says if it's going to expected to exceed 60 hours, the client and consultant will agree on a specific scope of work that will be authorized by the client and consultant via addendum to this agreement. This will be defined by a specific, not to exceed price to complete the project that is mutually agreed upon between the client and the consultant. So I think that takes care of our not to exceed portion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councilman Harjo.
One last thing to add: when we become the clients of firms similar to this, or say clients of our friends from Keller that came tonight, those costs to deliver the items that we're requesting, whether that's engineering service or tool creation or report creation or any of the services that a firm like this provides, there is the connotation that this is essentially time on task, right? And time on task costs funding, and their expertise costs money. Weighing that against the possibility of us making a misstep in something we're not subject matter experts in, like bonding, PR, all the services offered under this. I think it's a slam dunk for us to have these services at our fingertips for the projects ahead.
Councilman Brennan?
Paula, what's the line item that this is intended to be paid out of?
I'm looking into it.
Probably professional services.
I would think like shared. Yeah, you engage them and then you say, hey, we're switching projects to wastewater. At that point, you're going to have to say, we're going to professional fee out of wastewater.
Okay, I'm following up with that. And you mentioned LID paying for it, or maybe not all of it, but where do you draw the line as to how much you can tie into the LID?
Oh, that's a good question. I
Would
guess
be the number of hours.
yeah,
work they did for the LID.
The scope of work in your mind is the financing to finish the project that we're struggling with now?
No, to go out and get the funding to pay back the 1.2.
So is it safe to say probably a large portion of this will be LID dedicated?
For right now, until you guys decide what kind of route you want to go with the wastewater, then that will be all wastewater or professional fees out of city.
Okay.
Mayor,
Council, or sorry, Tiff, go ahead.
I'd like to say that it would be all LED, but a year ago, we met with Cameron and it seemed specific on wastewater in a treatment plant facility. So by the time he gets out here and starts moving, it could very much be other projects. Like at this point, we need them to close the LID, so absolutely the funding is that they would bill us for the projects that, and the hours they're working specific on the project. If that answers your question.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Stays solely for the LID, that's what I'm trying to say.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
Not the full intention.
It's not the full intention.
Full. Okay. What's the? How much have we spent out of professional services thus far?
From the last run, we spent, this was the last meeting prior to this, $250.
Okay. And so what you've, just trying to be certain here, of the budgeted amount, what else is in the pipeline that, because you asked for 70, I think if I'm on the right page, you got 70. So what else has been like already like predetermined to be spent out of that?
Nothing at this point.
So
I can't say I'm working on trying to look at administrative facilities, like this building and revamping and that, but that's not to say that it comes out of this budget fund that professional fee.
okay, and all of the Keller stuff will come out of water, wastewater.
Yeah, they pay for that.
Okay, and so the council approved $70,000 without any specific service.
Based on your 3-year average.
It's on average.
Okay. And this is a 2-year contract with, I think it says automatic 1-year extensions for 5 years.
This agreement will be fully executed by both council and with 2-year from the extension date with agreement to have 5 automatic 1-year extensions. Either party may cancel
This is not.
30 days prior written notice of such termination.
Well, I'll just say here, I'm not ready to vote on this one. I feel like I need a little more time and research. I won't hold up the vote. If the vote does occur, I'll probably abstain from it. But it would be my wish to table it.
Mayor,
Councilman Harjo?
question for staff, mostly Tiff. With the looming close of LID 1, how quickly do we need to move on this?
It's a process. We have to know the final costs. We have to have public notice, which has to involve a financial plus our LID attorney. At this point, they've anticipated closure to at least take almost 8 to 12 weeks. Is that correct, Mayor?
It's like 3 months.
Yeah, it was
We've got to
almost.
do public hearings.
Yeah, and we have to timeline all the public notices in and that. And so if this, not that I don't respect your concerns with it, but if this gets tabled to the 11th, we're pushing out even further for recouping our funding on the LIDs in the meantime. Not that I'm saying we're ready tomorrow either. So.
Mayor.
Councilwoman Workla?
Okay, so this is 70,000 that we allocated in the budget underneath fiber optics.
No.
No,
Professional.
under professional services.
Administrative budget, professional services.
Underneath administrative budget, okay. So that's taxpayer money that would be going to a service that would supply their expertise to LID1. So for those that did not sign up for LID1, they're potentially, their tax dollars are paying for that to be helped to close that out. Am I correct?
About this entire funding, no. We would use Clearwater Financial for other things of large-scale projects that would potentially use bonding to fund them. So not all of that money is focused to LAD.
Mayor,
Councilwoman Garvey?
if I heard you correctly, you said that they will be split up between the departments that is using them based on the billing that you're going to receive from Clearwater.
Yes, ma'am.
So, $12,000 could go, 10,000 of it could go to the LID one. So that's not taxpayers' dollars, that's the LID paying for that portion. And then the remaining 2,000 might go to wastewater when we start talking about cell lagoon number 10. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, all right, just make sure I'm clear. Okay.
Councilman Brennan?
And when we started calculating the rough estimated expense for the individual homeowners within LID number 1, was part of that calculation this professional service?
Yes.
Yep.
And where would I find that at? That's part of that calculation, and to what amount?
Like whether we funded that in it, we anticipated we would have that 50 to go out for funding to close the LA.
It's in here.
But I don't know if we have that firmly wrote in a spreadsheet anywhere. If that's what you're asking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's. We just knew we had a glooming cloud that we would have to do this.
Mayor.
Councilman Hartshell?
Tiff, would it also be true, this is really Tiff and Paula and the mayor, the CARES Act funding that was attributed, the 1.2 million, the remaining funds of that build fund is also attributed to the closure of LID1. Like all aspects of LID1 were to be wrapped up into the cost of LID1, not necessarily the fiber budget itself, and not from admin, but from the funding that was remaining, the seed funding that was remaining for LID1.
That is correct. The ordinance to establish the LID is very specific in the amount of funding it's allowed. And you cannot exceed that threshold. And that funding includes this bond amount to go out and fund to get the completion of the project and repay yourselves.
Yeah.
Councilman Brennan?
I don't have anything to argue that, so I'll go with you on that. Yes.
There's an ordinance, you guys
Yeah.
passed it, so.
Right, but the very specifics as to what service and.
We're very much monitoring that every day.
Sure.
Mayor.
Councilman Hartshell?
Regardless of the outcome of this topic of voting, would you have any interest, and would staff have any interest in kind of at a future council meeting, whether it's the next or the following, maybe provide a snapshot of like where that funding exists currently? back in the fiber workshop days, we were looking at that kind of burn down chart in Excel. If we could maybe take a peek at that, I would love to see that on a future agenda.
Okay.
Mayor,
Councilwoman Garvey?
I would like to approve Clearwater Financial as the city financial advisor and authorize the mayor to sign it with the caveat that you guys do bring to us kind of the breakdown when the departments are using that money, so that way we can all be okay with that it's not just coming out of the professional services GL.
Mayor, would it suffice, I guess, Councilwoman, if like we provided like just a memo when the expense comes in? Because the bill's gonna come and we're gonna divide, and then it will be in the bill run, similar to the treadmills, right? So if we just included that, I think
Yes.
we'll be safe.
Yes, thank you.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any further discussion?
Mayor, just to clarify, Councilwoman Garvey, is that for any expenditure out of that, coming out of Clearwater Financial?
Regardless, so they're gonna have to come to us when we go over the 12,000. The city's gonna have to ask us, right? So we'll get that breakdown, so that'll be good. I'm asking for the breakdown of the 12,000, this immediate payment, this breakdown, to make sure that we can see that it comes out of the LID, and then the remainder.
Wherever else.
Yeah, yes, that's what I'm asking for.
That's fair.
Okay. So it's been motioned and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for question. Councilman Brennan?
Aye.
Councilwoman Workla?
Aye.
Councilman Harjo?
Aye.
Councilwoman Garvey?
Aye.
All right, let's run down to new business action. Deliberation decision regarding Mountain Home Fire billing for services provided. Chief, come on down, bud.
Mayor.
Councilman Harjo.
Chief Moore and I had a discussion before the meeting here regarding the memo that we all received in our packets, having some kind of compare and contrast about the research and the data sets and the desire. Chief, I told you before, I think this effort is great. It provided a lot of feedback pertaining to what it would look like for the city to follow suit with other municipalities around the country that do bill for fire. In our discussions, and kind of where I see the deviation between the intent of what I had originally sent and the product that we have in front of us today, we might have kind of a deviation in the mindset and the idea. Originally, to quote the request, was the reference offering in the email regarding a billing service, a third-party billing service that would bill insurance specifically and not the homeowner or the commercial owner, as a product that they, or a service that they offer, coupled with a compassionate billing policy where the city expects the insurance companies to pay and would not pursue payment from the people, the taxpayer, the person who lost their home, their vehicle, what have you. In the instances that we could receive funding from insurance, and that we would never approach the topic of, and if anything, write the shall nots that says we wouldn't attempt to bill the tax-paying citizen. I don't want to waste anybody's time on this. Chief, I wish I would have called you before we got the agenda and had a discussion on some of this, so we could kind of put our heads together. I think this is awesome. It gave us a boatload of information that captured a lot of data that we typically wouldn't have access to, but it's also not the thing that of my intent. So I don't want to waste the chief's time. I don't want to waste the staff's time. I would like to table this indefinitely, and perhaps in a mythical future we can reapproach the billing insurance topic and a compassionate billing policy. So with that, I'll make a motion to table this indefinitely.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any further discussion?
Mayor, yeah, I'd like to ask a few questions. I won't stand in the way of tabling it. Just to clarify, Chief, as I read your memo here, I don't know that it was specified how billing would occur. Is this addressing like billing the home in your mind? Is this billing the homeowner or the property owner or the insurance company?
Excuse me, Mayor, Council, yes, I, in my mind, I think that is a possibility of the perception that would be the case. I would liken it to getting in a chip in your windshield, and you think, oh gosh, I go get my windshield fixed rather than repaired, my insurance is going to go up. I don't know, the article that I read out of Modesto, is that right? That was a dated article, and I don't know that the services that we were talking about, as Councilman Harjo mentioned, I don't know that we're talking about apples and apples with that. So I think that there's some areas there that certainly I think that the public would probably have some issue with. That's my personal opinion. You asked for that.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So I'm on the same page as I think the insurance billing is the route that we were talking about earlier. But for clarity, also, I don't think that alleviates homeowners from billing if, in some circumstances, if insurance doesn't pay. And just as I look through your list of billable, non-billables, optional type things, one of them is like an unauthorized burn that goes out of control. You say mandatory here. Is that's a mandatory bill? Or
that would be in the strictest sense, yes, that would be in the strictest sense if we had an unauthorized burn that spread, that caused us to come and put out an unauthorized burn and mitigate that fire, that would be something that I think that it would be an infraction, one, unauthorized burning, and something that I personally would see as a potential for billing.
Yeah, right, okay. So, just saying. And in one statement you make in here, you said the fire department would determine when and if a response is billed. This cannot be a blanket policy established by the city. There must be some leeway in billing, but it must be consistent. What do you mean by that?
Well, Mayor, Council, what I mean by that is there's so many gray areas when you go to a fire scene that may cause you to pause and say, well, this doesn't really fit that. There's just instances there could be a death involved. There could be animals lost. There could be certain things. One of my concerns on this thing is how this process would be administered through the department. I make a vast majority of the fire calls. Therefore, a vast majority of those decisions would be mine. But not if I'm not there on a scene. That could be something that would be possibly a point of contention that would be put on somebody's shoulders that I don't know that would be qualified to make that decision.
As far as like billing procedure, Paul, like is it for Councilman Harjo's like desire here and the route he's trying to take? Is this like a schedule of fees type thing that the council would have to create, or is it just totally open to however much we just file a claim with insurance and we get what we get, or can we ask for? I don't have all the options on my mind with fire. I apologize, but you talk about extrication and vehicle fires and all that. Like if you have to go extinguish a vehicle fire from a non-resident, I feel like that's a blanket policy of the city council to say, Chief, we want you to go seek insurance reimbursement. And that's what's on my mind, and I'm reading your note here differently.
So I think like if you go out onto the highway and it's you're having to spend tax dollars to go put out a fire up by Jack's or by Jack in the Box, and it's some person from Washington, then you go after. Is that what you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because the taxpayer is paying for fire service.
For sure.
The non-taxpayer is not, and so that's, I think, where we say we need to recoup the expense of extinguishing the fire or holding the hazmat at bay or
Mayor,
whatever it may be.
when have you done?
Councilwoman Garvey?
Are you done? I can understand 100% what you're saying, and I can empathize with that. And I think that the decision needs to lie on Chief Moore. If we have a fire and it burns the whole entire car down and their whole family dies, the last thing they want is to have to pay and finagle through insurance. The other question is probably more for Paul. So I understand we're talking out of town, and then we're talking our residents. Our residents pay for fire protection. We pay for that already. So I guess I'm unclear. And again, actually, I kind of appreciate your sentiment. Why are we even talking about this? We need to listen to our department heads. He's saying, please let me make this decision. It's not our decision. We're not the ones there on a fire when their house is burned to nothing and potentially have lost their child, their cat, their dog, their mother. This is I don't know. I respect that. I think it belongs to your discretion.
Mayor.
Councilman Harjo.
I very much agree with that sentiment. I'd like to just bump this along to a vote.
Perfect.
Mayor.
Councilman Brennan.
I just feel like there's a misunderstanding here. Like I fully believe in discretion, right? Especially by the fire chief here. Discretion is great. I think the goal is to have a policy or a procedure in place that allows the chief to go try to seek recoupment in certain circumstances, and maybe he makes that decision. Maybe the council wants some type of an event always to at least try. Maybe not, but I don't think we're demanding that he goes out for everything and tries to get paid back. Just that we have a policy that allows for him to try under certain circumstances.
Mayor?
Councilman Garvey.
Which was why we're tabling it, so we can discuss this further.
Okay. So there's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Councilwoman Garvey.
Aye.
Councilman Harjo.
Aye.
Councilman Brennan.
Aye.
Councilwoman Workla.
Aye.
Okay.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Chief. Councilman Harjo, run down to action item number 3, deliberation on golf fee per person. Councilman Harjo, this one is yours, my friend.
Mayor, I had a brief discussion with yourself, with Tiffany, with Jeff at the golf course. We have 2 non-action items, one new business number 3, the other being new business number 4. They're really kind of one and the same, and through the lens of deliberating what the future might hold for us, recognizing that right now is likely not the appropriate time to enact something for the lack of data. In the golf year ahead of us, and comparatively to the golf years behind us, the concentrated use of tournaments has undoubtedly caused wear and tear through concentrated use throughout the weekends, 2-3 day long tournaments. We've heard from Jake in the past, especially I think during budget season, that it takes some time to recover that course and do the necessary things that him and his team do well. I think the point of me trying to bring this topic forward is we have an opportune time to start capturing some data for perhaps next year this time, to analyze what the tournament head count looks like, what fees we've attained through those tournaments, and how that correlates to the cost to deliver both the tournament through our golf operations manager, his staff, whether that's full-time or seasonal, Jake's staff, whether full-time or seasonal, and try and get a more formulaic understanding of like where the expense is and if there's a desire and an opportunity to approach like tournament-specific fees, whether that sets aside from a golf fee per person or the tournament play per person, where the city could actualize some profit with the intent of recouping and administering the course on the tail end of those tough and hard use periods of the weeks. So it was really more of an opportunity to kind of have a brief discussion if that's desirable, if we need to make any suggestion that we capture any data specifically, to perhaps have that discussion a year or so down the road.
Okay. So like, sorry, Councilman. So 3 and 4, you're wanting to do data capture for this year.
I would, Mayor. Sorry,
Councilman. Sorry.
Yes, and it's obviously not strictly up to me. There's staff involved, Jake and Jeff, Paula, Tiff, like you guys have all been around here. Mayor, you're a golfer. I know we have golfers on staff. This is more just the catalyst for conversation, whether that conversation happens tonight or amongst staff, what the possibilities are to, and if it's appropriate or not, to look at gathering data that may result in like a separate tournament fee or an adjustment to tournament play fee for next year this time.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Mayor?
Councilwoman Garvey?
I have a considerable amount of thoughts on this conversation, and I will try to remain unbiased. In order to, for me, strictly for me, to discuss a fee for tournament play, I would need to see specific numbers, because what I'm hearing is it's a little bit hard on Jake after tournaments. Well, you know what? He gets paid really well, and that's his job, to fix the golf course. Now, if there's considerable amount of damage done by a golfer or a tournament player, that's a whole different story. However, this is a municipal golf course, so are we going to start charging, for example, I want to rent Legacy Park. And, you know, it's going to take Parks and Rec a little bit of time to maybe clean up after the birthday party. I can understand the sentiment. However, the tournaments don't put themselves on for their own self-need. A lot of these tournaments go to cancer research and community events and a lot of things that, you know this, the chamber tournament. Mm-hmm. I mean, that is a survival mechanism for them, right? So now we're going to be like, well, hey, sorry. So what I would like to see before this discussion comes further is that there is, and I've asked, and I'm not saying anything about any of the people at the golf course. I have asked for specific numbers. I have yet to receive them, which is neither here nor there because we've moved quite far on from that discussion. But that's what I would like to see. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Mayor.
Councilman Harjo?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. The wear and tear on the carts, we don't have a real formula now that the operations lie with the city. We don't have that data, and the reason that I bring this up is perhaps this is the opportune time to start thinking about how to gather that data so we know. And maybe that goes for our cart rental fees, like just being more formulaic about the mindset of everything, not not with the intent on making decision today. And quite frankly, like, we may find that the data shows that we are under, over, we're reasonable, but data is valuable, and if it's free to gather and not burdensome, it does give us a lot of power in the future to analyze and make the right business decisions. I fully hear you. These beneficial tournaments, I mean, you look at what Marcella Truba did this year for the benefits for the Nick Truba thing. Like, it's heartwarming, right? And the intent is not to take away from those benefits, but more of we have an opportune time now that the operation is under our umbrella to start putting some definition to and less guesswork in the future of, like, where are we at? And that applies both to tournaments, the regular play, and so on. It's formulaic in looking to the future and make sure that we have the right data in front of us, or any data in front of us, to make any of those decisions related to that department. Not so much to pick on the tournaments. So,
Mayor?
Councilwoman Garvey?
Maybe, I don't know, Tiffany, Paula, somebody can answer. So what do our greens fees go towards then? The maintenance of the golf course, the maintenance of the golf carts, the maintenance of the grass, the maintenance of everything. So we already have that in place. So I just feel like it would just kind of be a double whammy, because tournaments, each and every person pays to play.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, okay, yep, I won't keep going. I will stop.
So, Councilman, so this one will come back once after the year, and we'll bring it back up after we have some data, and then I'll get with Councilwoman Garvey and find the numbers that she's looking at. I'll figure.
Yeah, well, we can figure that
Yep.
out later.
So, is that for action item number 3 and 4?
Mayor.
Just to Councilman Harder?
Yes, please, to table those as well for date uncertain. This was more of the catalyst for conversation.
Okay.
Than anything, so.
Okay.
Mayor,
Go ahead.
on the note, could we get more of a specific of what data is wanted? Because that same kind of sentiment was thrown out in our last meeting of, we want staff to give data. So even if that's given back to us in an email for us to provide solid, like, we're tracking tournament rounds, we're now tracking people who are wanting to host a tournament, kind of knowing numbers of participants in terms. So we're tracking some data that we think is valuable, but it may not be the same data you guys are wanting. So if you could at least get us kind of what you want, we'll for sure add that to our list of data tracking to help. So,
Mayor.
Yes, Councilman.
Tiff, sorry. Tiff, do you think it'd be more appropriate to bump this back to the next meeting? Give us a little bit of time to jot down a couple notes so we're not violating open meeting law and that kind of thing. Well, we could just put even a time limit to the topic and just go like, hey, your list is due.
I think that, or if definitely it's just to collect the raw data, if you as members specifically know what you want and you want to just shoot me or Paula or the mayor a direct email with what it is you're looking for, I think we can definitely solve that and collect over the next year and bring this back.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
Okay, we'll run down to number 5, non-action, or no, action item, sorry. Action. Deliberation and probably decision for a resolution of City Council Mountain Home supporting the state legislator on exemption of income tax for military pension. Councilwoman Workla?
Yeah, so I hand out tonight the final resolution and then some talking points and then the references to those. I just want to make clear, no House bill needs to be attached to this. By passing this resolution, when this topic is introduced back at the State House, sponsors of the new bill could add and voice our resolution directly to other legislatures to aid in passage of their bill. This will send a strong message to our community and legislators that the City Council of Mountain Home supports the state income tax exemption of military pensions. I can read the resolution here. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Mountain Home, Elmore County, Idaho supports state legislation on exemption of income tax on military pensions. Whereas the city of Mountain Home is home of Idaho's only active duty military base, Mountain Home Air Force Base, the home of the 366 Fighter Wing. Whereas the city of Mountain Home is home to a large percentage of retired veterans from all branches of the United States Armed Services. Whereas currently 37 states do not tax military pensions, however, Idaho is not among those. Whereas retired military members have brought and continue great sacrifice to our country, state, and local communities. Now therefore is hereby resolved that the Mountain Home City Council supports state legislation on the exemption of income tax on military pensions. And Tiffany, please forgive me for not really understanding the full process that this needs to be on, you know, city letterhead and a number assigned, etc. I just thought that could be a condition that we could add to it. So, okay.
It just has to come back again.
Okay. So I just wanted to send that out to council and see what they thought.
Council. So, really quick, Councilman or Councilwoman Workla, I thought it was for any. Now I'm reading it. Why is it only 65 plus? Because I thought the reason behind this was to get the, like, obviously when, let's say you're retired, right, 23 years, and that's what you want to keep, right? You want to keep those or try to get them to come to Idaho because they have all those phenomenal skill sets. Is this this one right here? Is this? I thought it was for all retired military, not 65 plus. Am I reading that wrong?
Idaho currently only tax exempts military pensions when they are 65 plus. I'm pretty sure that's what I found.
Mayor.
Councilman Harjo.
Obviously, this entire community is very driven by our friends in the military and Mountain Home Air Force Base down the road, and we have a lot of retirees that and veterans that come here as active and stay here or attracted because Idaho and Mountain Home specifically is so pro veteran. And I don't want to discount that, but I've got a couple points that give me a big hesitation on lending any support at an official level from the body of the city council. One of those specifically being that the current legislation of House Bill 40 has some legislative intent language in there that does not solely reflect the benefit of a reduction of income tax for veterans. That legislation also includes removing a capital gains and losses for both precious metal and bullion, monetized bullion, from the calculation of state income taxes. And we're support for the current House bill that promotes this would also be support for things that are well outside of our wheelhouse. And unfortunately, by the nature of legislation in the State House, we obviously have no control of how these bills are written in the statement of purpose. But the fact remains that the current bill under House Bill 40 just it has unrelated things that I personally wouldn't be in support of. And unfortunately, that's affecting the overall legislation.
I'm sorry.
Can I do one more real quick?
Uh-huh.
Those are inextricable, right? Like, we have no control over that other than request to our electeds. But the second point is we're bordering on as a non-declared political affiliated body, we're bumping up against whether it's appropriate for us to exude support for something anyways when it comes to legislation as a body. We did not do things as a city, and this predates some of us on the council, when the school bond was running. Those are things that directly affect our community, that are local efforts from another political subdivision, and the city, to the best of my recollection, made no official stance on that. And with those 2 points, I will flat out say I'm just I'm not interested in this as a product of the city at this moment.
Okay, here.
Councilwoman Workla?
Sure, no, thank you. So that's why I didn't put House Bill 40 on there, because I agree with you. There's a lot of other language in House Bill 40, which just dropped last Thursday. So all this is just support, as a resolution, support to support state legislation on exemption of income tax, right, on the military pensions. City has control to voice their position. I questioned it at first, though, as well, because I just want to make sure we weren't stepping out of our, I guess, the political activity realm of things. So then Jeff Schroeder got back to me. He says, I think either way it is legally okay, letter of support or resolution. Resolutions can be legally binding on the city, and I recommend caution in using those as a vehicle to simply communicate the city's support or opposition when a letter would accomplish the same thing. However, the proposed resolution Councilwoman Workla provided looks fine as is and poses no legal issues I can see, as it expresses a generalized sentiment encouraging the legislature to adopt an exemption and does not direct any employees to take any action.
Mayor,
Councilman Brennan?
let me first start off by declaring a conflict. Okay, for everybody listening, I will be fully eligible for a military pension in 5 days. So, I have a conflict. 21 years.
I didn't know you were 65.
I was gonna say, you're not 65 yet.
I'll be eligible for it. And I served 20. 21 is where I'm calling it. Okay, but that aside, Councilwoman Workla said, after Councilman Harjo's comment, she said exactly what was on my mind, and I don't have any pre-knowledge of this. And to me, there is zero reference to the House bill. House bill? Is that right? Yeah. House bill to this. Nothing at all. And it looks like a generalized statement as to the city supports income tax exemptions on military pensions, just as a flat statement. I don't see any what do they call it, pork in the legislative world in this, in a simple resolution. There's nothing else tied to it. There's no reference to all the other stuff. So I see no issues with it.
Council, what do you want to do?
Mayor.
Councilman Harjo.
I want to make one quick point of reference. Thank you both, Councilwoman Workla and Councilman Brennan, for your service to this country. There are a lot of folks in this room. Chris, I believe there are others that have served. Our friend Kimberly back here. My comments are no slight to those who put their time and effort, blood, sweat, and tears into the safety for our country. I don't know that I can lend support knowing that there are, in the actionable item of House Bill 40, even though this resolution doesn't cite it specifically, there are concerns that I have as a voting citizen that's set aside from the support, which is undoubtable, the support for the reduction of income tax for military veterans. I'll finish with that.
Yeah.
Councilman Brennan.
Just a question, and I don't want to get in the middle of Councilwoman Workla's work on this. Is there a possibility to add a statement in a resolution that we are not referencing? We are not referencing House Bill number 40, but we are showing our support for exemptions on military pensions.
Councilwoman Workla?
Yeah, exactly. I want your input, right, on how we could potentially tweak this to make it, becoming universal from council. Yeah, 100%. I think that would be fine.
Mayor.
Councilwoman Garvey?
All right. I 100% agree with Councilman Harjo. I think that, again, I'm not going to rehash your sentiments because I agree with 99% of what you said. My problem is I I don't personally want to do it as a resolution. I would appreciate if you would come to us and say, hey, is anybody willing to email a letter of support? Because some things could change in this bill, and we're there. We have a resolution there. I also agree that it's not in our purview, and we get call for actions all the time, like email your senators, and I think that's great, and I think that that's in this sort of instance how this should be handled. It's just strictly my opinion. Is hey Becky, would you mind writing a letter? And I totally would, but I think as a governing body, or whatever you want to call us, I would have to say I'm not in support of signing a resolution. I would email a letter of support, 100%.
Mayor.
From personal Becky Garvey.
Councilwoman Wickla?
Yeah, and I think that's where Councilman Brennan was saying that if we put in there that we don't support House Bill 40, but just this part of that, because legislature loves to throw a whole bunch of things together in one bill to get it passed. I understand that world. So that's where I'm saying just this statement of support, right? I was open to a letter of support too if a resolution gives you all heartburn. But that's why I checked with Jeff Schroeder just to see where we could go, and he says that this is fine, so that's why I went with it.
Sure.
My opinion, council, is I think a letter of support is probably where, if I was to vote today, I would. I know Marty's working on it. Fumes Brennison, I talked to him on Friday night about it, and I said I support it. So I will support a letter of support, just as long as it's not tied to a resolution or a House bill. So however this body decides they want to go that direction, you know where I stand on my my vote.
Mayor.
Councilwoman Garvey.
And I think that there are plenty of people working to get this legislation passed. Unfortunately, it just gets caught up in a bunch of, what do you call it, pork? I don't know, pork. But I think it's going to happen, and I'm with the mayor. Letter of support all day long. I will send it off tomorrow.
So are you asking, Councilwoman, a letter of support with my city letterhead? Mayor Sykes' letterhead?
Mayor?
Councilwoman Wickla?
I'm asking,
The body.
first of all, for the resolution, but it sounds like that's not getting the support.
Mayor.
Councilman Harjo?
Paul, legal concerns with both the resolution format and a letter of support from the body plus the mayor?
No, I think Jeff's analysis that she read out is accurate. So Jeff came and asked me before he wrote the response to Jen, and I said probably better as a letter. However, I can't see, because you don't want to be lobbying, you don't want to be using one government to impact another. All of that. But I didn't, when I read it, I'm like, that's not really, it's more supporting, kind of like supporting the troops kind of thing. So I thought it was fine. Whether it's done, like I said, at first blush, I was just sort of like, it's probably better as a letter, but is it prohibited to do this as a reso? No, it's fine. It's all right. I mean, I don't have any heartache with it either way. But I do take, I don't remember I do think, I agree that if you wanted to pass this or turn it into a letter or however you want to do this, is adding by interlineation without lending support or criticism to the entirety of House Bill, blah, blah, blah. We, the City Council, nonetheless support, and then the rest of it. So you can temper it by not playing make sure you're not playing politics with supporting the entirety of the House bill that is layered and and you're right, they load stuff into these things and throw your mama from the train to kiss, you know, to try, and it ends up, oh, sorry, I should have brought pork into that.
Councilor Brennan?
Paul, just to confirm, if the legal process here, I've declared a conflict, I can still vote on it if a motion is called?
Your conflict is, do you perceive you direct a pecuniary benefit directly by virtue of it? And the answer is, you don't. You happen to be in the position that if it is granted, I suppose you would get not taxed on it when you're 65 years of age. I don't know, I think that's pretty attenuated, but if you wanted to, if you believe it to be an economic benefit and you're voting by virtue of your status in that regard, just recuse yourself. It's easy enough.
Mayor.
Well, hold on.
But you both are in that.
Yeah,
boat,
that's why I'm
and
like, then what do you do?
So I don't, you're right, I'm talking too much. Short answer is I don't believe that to be, you're not the decision maker on this. This is a resolution or a letter. So I can't see how this at all constitutes a material economic benefit that would preclude you from voting.
Okay. And as a soon retired National Guardsman, I won't be eligible for a pension until 59 and a half.
Yeah.
I got a long ways to go.
Mayor,
Councilwoman Workla?
I'm at 59. I have a ways to go too.
For those of us that are in our 50s, like, shut it.
For your country.
All right, council, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
Councilman Brennan?
I just would like to make a public comment to Councilwoman Workla. If you're passionate about it, make a motion and let what happens happen.
Okay. All right. Mayor.
Councilwoman Workla?
All right. So I'll make a motion to approve resolution of the City Council of Mountain Home supporting state legislation on exemption of income tax on military pensions. I need to add on there that no House bill number will be attached, and that only this statement or this resolution will be of support.
Like Paul said, no.
Councilman Brennan?
Good or bad.
Yeah, an overt statement that this is not lending support to the House bill itself. However,
Support or criticism. Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Councilwoman Workla?
Aye.
Councilman Brennan?
Aye.
Councilman Harjo?
The Facebook realm is going to have fun with this one. Nay, I can't sign my name to the possibility.
Sorry, Councilwoman Garvey?
Nay.
Okay. I said, I'm not voting.
oh,
You're not voting?
Well, I'm going to get beat up either way. I told you how I'd vote. I would vote for a letter of support. So, abstain.
bills.
Mayor,
Councilman Brennan?
I don't have my intent, it would be to now make a motion for a letter of support. It's not written in front of us. The language would clearly have to change a little bit. Can we still vote on that? Or do we have to see the letter first before we vote on it? I'm sure everybody's gonna wanna see it.
So my, council, my thing is I'd like legal to draft the letter. If you're going to do a letter of support, so it dots the i's, cross the t's, legal. That way because someone could say something down the road, you know what I mean? And I'd rather be Paul's schnooker than ours.
Okay. Mayor?
Hanging me out to dry.
Councilman Brennan?
Although it may not be necessary, I'll make a motion to have Paul draft a letter with the assistance of Councilwoman Workla on this topic.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any further discussion?
Mayor,
Councilman Harjo?
one oddball suggestion that popped in my head. What if we looked at this as a community issue and as well, if this body so chose, to exercise our MOU with the Military Affairs Committee and sign a letter of support as the MAC, the City Council, the Mayor, to the effect of, we support legislation that reduces the income tax of veterans in Idaho.
I like it.
Obviously, we have a vote, and that wasn't a part of the motion,
You wanna,
but
would you like to extend on your motion, or?
For clarification, it's essentially just bringing in Mac with us as a dual.
So you got three, you got mayor, you got council, you got Mac.
What's the, how long will it take to, how long will it take to get those bodies together to all like independently, like two of them are here, I guess, to get, how long will it take Military Affairs Committee to hear this, think about it, and make a decision, and will it be too late for the legislation?
So I usually don't do this, but I'm gonna ask Ms. Mulkey, give me your synopsis really quick, since
I've already forwarded you all the email to do the letter and to send it to all of the voting body in the House and the Senate.
oh, right there you're talking for Mac, I'm sorry.
From MAC, yes, it's a forwarded email from MAC.
Okay, so they're supporting it.
They are supporting it.
Okay.
They've asked all of the MAC and members to support it as well.
Perfect.
It's all in your email.
Okay.
Except for yours, that it's, you want me to send it to yours too?
Sure.
Okay. And Marty and Connie are both on text with me right now about it.
Okay. So, can we do that? And since you already, and we'll just get the letter popped out by Mr. Fitzer, probably within a day or two.
It'll be done tomorrow.
What? Hey, that's on the record.
Mayor,
Councilman Brennan.
I'll make a motion to amend my motion to also wrap in the leadership of the Military Affairs Committee to also sign off on basically one joint letter.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Councilman Brennan.
Aye.
Councilwoman Workla.
Aye.
Councilman Harjo.
Aye.
Councilwoman Garvey.
Aye.
Okay. We're gonna run down to we're gonna run down to ordinances. Ordinance 1804, amending Mountain Home 164G.
Mayor,
Councilman Harjo.
I'd like to make a motion that we suspend the three reading rule and read this ordinance by title only for its one and only reading tonight.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Councilwoman Garvey.
Aye.
Councilman Brennan.
Aye.
Councilwoman Workla.
Aye.
Councilman Harjo.
Aye.
Tip, excuse me, please read the ordinance.
Ordinance 1804, an ordinance of the City of Mountain Home, Idaho, amending Title I, Chapter 6, Section 4 of Mountain Home City Code of Mountain Home, Idaho, and adding a subsection G entitled Video Live Streaming and Recording of Meetings and providing an effective date.
Council, you've heard this ordinance read. Do you wish it to pass? Councilman Harjo?
Aye.
Councilman Brennan?
Aye.
Councilwoman Garvey?
Aye.
Councilwoman Workla?
Aye.
All right. Final comments, anybody?
Mayor.
Councilman Harjo?
I have a couple quick things. One's a question for Paul. Last week was the Association of Idaho Cities Water Summit. I took a boatload of notes. Just curious if there's a legal mechanism that I can use, whether that's an email back to the mayor and the clerk that they can distribute to both staff and the council to kind of show where our state future looks like on some of these topics that affect us in water and wastewater.
Yes, that would be the proper process to do it.
Thank you.
Didn't escape the pun about the boatload about water.
Go ahead, I'll have one more when you're done.
Councilwoman Workla?
Yeah, so I would like to place on the next meeting agenda for February 11th an LID1 fiber update. How is fuel being paid for LID1 and how much of the ARPA funds are left? Our last update was on March 2024 and it was $469,000, so I just want to know where we're at with that today.
Copy that. Councilman Brennan?
I will support her request to have that on the agenda.
Mayor, I'll be the third.
There you go.
Mayor?
Just like that. Voila. Beautiful thing.
Mayor?
Yes, sir. Councilman Brennan.
The council that was present for our last meeting, had asked staff to provide, regular updates, for any new gained information on the dispatch, contract. And I guess I'd like to hear what we have, if anything.
Nothing that I know of.
Mayor Council, I have nothing.
Chief, anything back there?
Nothing new. I had to cancel 2 meetings on Friday because of the funeral. I would have had more information except for that.
Okay. Mayor, I don't know if you were here at this part, but can you make that a regular, staff update on the agendas moving forward?
Sure.
Okay. And then I am very well aware that a lot of people are mad at me and some of the others of us up here. So I'm going to address it head on, is that for the citizens listening, but most importantly the city staff that are listening or may tune in, I need to clarify some misinformation. There was sentiment sent out that the council's motion on the last meeting, the motion and the approval was for the city police lieutenant and all other future, however it was worded, current and future vacancies. That is factually incorrect. Although there was a lot of conversation that occurred up here, the motion was strictly for one position in the city. The current vacant police lieutenant position. There was no other motion, nothing added to that motion. The only action taken by the council in that meeting was for one position. There was no addition for wage cuts. There were no extra positions. We didn't direct the mayor not to hire anybody. Yes, there were comments made about wages and about hiring. The motion was for one position in the city, nothing else. For the record, I'd like that to just ring loud and clear.
Mayor.
Councilman Harjo.
A parallel point to share that we have, as a council, as a city, an expectation from those who have elected us to maintain decorum in good faith, applying that equally across our interactions as council, respect for one another, respect for city staff, respect for citizens. We undoubtedly got off base in some of that discussion the last time, and it's undoubtable that there were city staff that were hurt. There were citizens that reached out afterwards wondering what the combination of all the topics were and not really understanding what the focus was. And if I have any ask of ourselves and anybody here operating as staff, us as the elected body, that we focus on maintaining decorum and respect for one another. It's not something that I take lightly. I don't think any of us intend to do those things, but sometimes our delivery might come off as attacking, and I think we could probably work on that as individuals. And I really don't feel like that's asking too much of ourselves.
Thanks, Councilman. Let's run into amending agenda, or sorry, we didn't need to amend it, we just need to go into it to pursuant to Idaho Code 7.
Mayor.
Oh, sorry.
I received an email from Erica Pedroza with the Mellon Water District while we've been in meeting, and DEQ has requested that a letter of support from the city of Mountain Home be drafted regarding their temporary emergency water usage, for them to seek some of that DEQ funding. Can I get permission to draft a letter to supply to non-water district to DEQ?
Mayor.
Paul, yeah, sorry, go ahead. Councilor Harjo.
DEQ wants a letter of support from City Mountain Home for Mellon Water District to apply for funding.
So it's not on the agenda. I can draft a letter for me, but can the body draft a letter as well?
It doesn't say it has to be the body, it just says City Mountain Home, so I would be the drafter.
Okay, then I can just draft it and send it off.
I just don't want everyone to be in the dark of why we did a letter of support.
So this is not an action item, but are you guys all right with me drafting a support letter so they can go out for DEQ funding?
Yeah.
Councilman Brennan.
It's strictly just saying we support them going to ask for money.
Yeah.
We're not providing the money, nothing like that.
It's from Tyler Parrish with DEQ. It says, I'm sorry. It's the loan application. Casey Carter from DEQ today, and she informed me that we need a letter of support from City Mountain Home confirming the connection they provided to the Mellon Water District for temporary water usage while they've been on our system.
Yeah, that's why.
DEQ to use categories consecutive with water systems and without clarification of significantly lower their ranking in their application. So they need it to move up in the application.
They just want to know that if they get the funding, we're not going to pull the rug out from under them.
Right. So.
February 11th.
I support that.
Okay. I'd prefer support. I'm going to write a letter, but I'd rather have the body tell me, hey, I support it.
I think we want them off for a while.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, Tiff. Anything else?
No.
Okay. Pursuant to, or can I have a motion to go into executive session 74-206 subsection 1 subsection F to communicate with legal counsel?
Mayor.
Councilman Brennan.
Make a motion to enter executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 74-206.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Councilwoman Garvey.
Aye.
Councilwoman Workala.
Aye.
Councilman Harjo. Aye. Councilman Brennan.
Aye.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's not declining like significantly.